City Council meeting of September 15, 2014. We just moved out of closed session, and I'd like to ask our attorney, do we have anything to report out of closed session?
No actions to report.
Thank you. So then we'll go ahead and move on. Again, I've called the regular session to order, and would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ania.
Here.
Councilmember Shalong. Here. Councilmember Murray. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau.
Here.
And Mayor Hawley.
Here. Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. So the first item on our agenda tonight is acknowledgments and introductions. We're going to be introducing Ahmed Badawi of Badawi and Associates, the city's new independent auditor, and hear a short presentation on auditor services. Mr. Palazzo?
I'd like to introduce Emily Boyd, our finance director, to introduce this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Emily Boyd, finance director. Mr. Ahmed Badawi is the city's new external auditor. He is with Badawi and Associates. Earlier this calendar year, the council appointed an audit committee who issued an RFP and did an audit firm search, and Mr. Badawi is the result of that search. He has been, he has specialized in audits of governmental agencies for many, many years. And I've asked him to come tonight. I want to introduce him to the council and to members of the public and to give you a short presentation on the audit process and what he does and what the city does in that process. Mr. Badawi.
Thank you.
Just get my presentation up and it'll be very quickly.
I will say, while you're doing that, Kelly Shalong and I had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Badawi earlier today for about an hour. So it was a good meeting, and I appreciated your time.
No, I appreciate all the information.
Yeah, it was a very good meeting. Rick and I sit on the audit committee, and it's my second time to do so. I think it's very important for the city to have that council to auditor relationship. We were able to have an open discussion about our budget and all the processes, internal controls, things like that, and so I'm very confident in the direction we're moving.
Thank you. There we go. Hey, yeah, that'll be good. I guess my vision is still good. I can see from here. So, it's a good sign.
Can you turn the screen down there around for him to view? I know, but I couldn't see it.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, respectful members of the council and members of the audience. Again, my name is Ahmed Badawi, and I'm the president of Badawi and Associates. We are a firm that are 100% specialized in auditing state and local government. And our main specialty is actually cities. We audit a lot of cities in California and different sizes. We're glad to be here, and we look forward to work with everyone in the city. Today, my presentation is really, really brief. This is our first day of the audit, so I don't really have a lot to report. Actually, I don't have anything to report. All I'm reporting is really just what we think our responsibilities are versus the city's responsibility, and just let you know about some of the interests in some of the information that we would like from the council, and allow the council some time to maybe think about it, and then they can always communicate with me later on. But basically, I'm going to start by explaining to you the audit of the city of Crescent City. What we're going to be covering today are first, who are the engagement team. what are the deliverables and the scope of the audit, areas of primary audit emphasis, and this is obviously not based on our current risk assessment. This is what a standard city risk areas would be, and then of course we would modify it as we get to know the city more. Input from the City Council, I'm not expecting any input today. I just wanted to I already got a lot of input from Rick and Kelly, and I look forward obviously to more input from the rest of the council. I'll just list some of the areas that we are normally interested in, and if you feel that you would like to add something or communicate anything to me, please feel free to email me or contact me, or any way that you feel is convenient for you to communicate with me. Also, I wanted to discuss with you some of the required communications that we have to communicate to you as your audit firm. Give you a very brief highlight on the new accounting standards that are coming your way, and then see if you have any questions for me. So I'm going to start first by letting you know who are the engagement team. This is how our engagement team is structured. I will be the engagement partner. What that means is that I'm the one who is ultimately responsible for the entire audit. If anything goes wrong, which I doubt it will, I'm the one to sue.
No.
We don't use that word here.
Yeah, and I never happened to me, and I don't intend it to happen anytime soon. Marcy Morgan will be our engagement manager. Michael Vavrishek is our engagement senior, and we have Kevin Anderson, he's our staff auditor. We also use a quality control partner. What the role of the quality control partner is really to review my work and just make sure that I adhere to professional standards and that they agree with me on all our conclusions. So normally Jessie will be involved during our planning process, just to make sure that she agrees with the audit plan and how we're going to move forward. The reason we do that is because we don't want, in the last minute when we're ready to issue the report, a quality control reviewer coming and saying, I don't agree with what you did. So we try to get them involved very early in the process to eliminate any unforeseen circumstances. We also have access to an IT specialist. We may not use him in the City of Crescent City audit. We always assess it based on the complexity of your accounting system and computer system. Normally an IT specialist will be needed if the city is developing its own applications or significantly modifying its applications. That requires basically somebody with more knowledge than a standard CPA to evaluate the controls embedded in the computer system. So we're in the process of evaluating that, and if we feel that there is a need for our IT specialist, he will be more than happy to do the work. The deliverables and the scope of the audit. So it is our understanding that we are to provide you an opinion on the city's basic financial statements. That's obviously your main report. Also, because you are a governmental agency, you're subject to government auditing standards, and that requires us to issue a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance with laws and regulations. You are a recipient of federal funds, and that makes you subject to what we call the single audit, which is the audit of the federal grants. So we will be issuing a report on compliance and on internal control over compliance with major federal awards program. We're also going to be issuing a management letter. If we have any findings and observations on internal controls, on processes, then we will be issuing a management letter communicating those findings to the council, and usually that letter will have responses from management as to their opinion about our observation and their response or corrective action to that. Also, we will be issuing an opinion on the Housing Authority financial statements. We will be providing an agreed upon procedures on your GAN limit, which is the appropriation limit that you approve every year. And then finally, we are required to issue a letter to the council basically talking about the responsibilities, any audit adjustments that we came up with, any disagreement with management, any difficulties encountered during performing the audit. So this will really be the last thing that you will receive from us after everything was completed. So these are the deliverables and the scope of the audit. Some of the areas of primary audit risk, again, we're not necessarily indicating that Crescent City have those risks that are unique to the city, but this is what we normally see in every city. Our biggest risk all the time is management overriding controls. We're not in any way indicating that management is currently doing so, but it is always a risk in any audit that we work with. And these are some of the procedures that we would normally follow to try to mitigate those risks. We make sure that the staff assigned to the individual areas have the proper expertise and experience to handle the complexity of that area. to incorporate an element of unpredictability. So even though we let the city know ahead of time, these are some of the things we're going to ask you to provide to us, but we don't really provide all the information that we're going to be looking at. Our sampling is usually, the city doesn't know what transactions we're going to be sampling or selecting for testing, and that adds the element of unpredictability. Also reviewing the accounting principles, testing the journal entries to make sure that they're appropriate, review accounting estimates for any bias, evaluation of business rationale of transactions, and then finally evaluating the appropriateness of fraud and related parties inquiries. What we do is we inquire of city officials, of department heads, of the executive branch, of basically their knowledge of fraud, their suspicion of any fraud, and also whether there are any related parties transactions with the city. Also, revenues are always a high-risk area. This is by default. Auditing standards requires us to assess revenues as a high-risk area unless we can justify otherwise. So these are some of the procedures that we perform to ensure that revenues are fairly stated. We confirm your governmental revenues, like your property taxes, your sales tax. We confirm those with the county, with the state. Regarding your proprietary revenues, like your water and sewer, we will be doing a lot of testing on the systems, on the controls, making sure that the process is being followed properly, that the rates are being pulled from the right database, that basically the process is working the way it's supposed to work. So these are some of the procedures we'll be doing there. And then, some of the other areas that usually we find to be of more moderate to high risk are capital assets. You always have the risk of expensing certain expenses instead of capitalizing them, or vice versa. You may have some maintenance expense that you put as capital assets instead. So we always look at those. Regarding purchasing, cash disbursement, and payroll, we search for any unrecorded liabilities, make sure that all liabilities are accrued properly. Because you have multiple funds, and coding the expenditure in the right place, in the right fund, becomes actually a very important thing in government audits. So we do testing of expenditure coding, make sure that the coding is done in the right place. And then, of course, payroll expense and accrual. We always look at the last pay period of the year, make sure that it got prorated properly to the proper period. We do a lot of analytics on payroll. We compare, your total salaries, expenses to the number of employees in the current year versus the prior year. Make sure that we understand the reason for any fluctuation. So we spend a lot of time on payroll as well. And then equity and fund balance, we just make sure that you're reporting the proper restrictions, the proper committed amounts, the proper assigned amounts, and that they can be supported. And then finally, cash and bank reconciliation. Of course, we want to make sure that you're up to date on all your reconciliations, that all your banks are properly reconciled, tied back to your accounting records, and all of that. Input from the council. These are just some questions for you to think about, and if you have anything that you would like to provide to us, please feel free to do so. But normally what we like to ask the council is whether you think that who do you think are the appropriate people to be in the city's governing structure with whom the auditor should communicate mainly. Obviously, for our purposes, most of the time it is really the finance director and the city manager who are our main contact in the day-to-day work that we do. But oftentimes there may be some unique circumstances that the council would like us to communicate with somebody else or involve somebody else in the communication. So one of the things that we ask you for. Also, allocation of responsibilities between those charged with governance and management. What areas should we be talking to council versus management? We find that this varies based on the size of the organizations. Oftentimes we see council in certain areas a lot more involved than in others. So we just want to, we're not saying that you should or should not be, we're just wanting to understand if there are any unique circumstances or things that we have to consider. And then the city's objectives and strategies and the related business risks that may result in material misstatements, your future plans and what you're planning to do with the city and how this can impact proper financial reporting. And sometimes we know like significant growth, significant increase in volume of activities, even though it's great news for the city, from an audit perspective, it really just raises the risk that material misstatements may occur because of just the large volume of transactions and things like that. So we would like to know if there are any future plans that that you think may impact the risk assessment and things of that nature. Also matters that the council consider as warranting a particular attention during the audit, and any areas for which they request additional procedures to be undertaken. So these are questions that I actually got an opportunity to ask both Rick and Kelly today on whether they had any areas of concerns or any areas that they would like us to focus on more. So this is obviously open to all the council. If you feel that there are any areas that you would like us to give special attention, we'd be more than happy to do so. And then finally, any other matters that the council believe are relevant to the audit of the financial statements that you think we should be aware of. So it's just something for you to think about. If you don't have anything, that's fine. But if you do, please feel free to contact us. Some of the required communications are responsibility under U.S. generally accepted auditing standards. We are mainly responsible for expressing an opinion on your financial statements to state whether your financial statements are fairly stated or not. We are also responsible for evaluating your internal control over financial reporting, and anytime we're going to see a weakness in how your controls are designed, we're going to bring it to your attention and provide a recommendation on how you can improve that. We're also responsible for evaluating compliance with laws and regulations. We only look at laws and regulations that we believe that non-compliance with which could have a material effect on the financial statements. So there may be some other laws out there that even if you don't comply with, it will not have a direct material on the financial statements, and those will not be covered by our audit. So this is our own assessment of what we think is material to the financials. Also, we evaluate the tone at the top. And I think I already done that today, and the results are pretty positive. What we mean by that is that we want to evaluate management and the governing body and see, do they really care about the audit? Do they really care about what the auditors have to say? Do they make sure that corrective action plans are being put in place to address audit findings, or just the findings keep growing year after year and nothing is being done about it? We're not saying that if this is the case that we will, resign. It can be at some point, if it's really severe, that we just determine that it's just not a good place for us to work. But it's just really impact our risk assessment significantly. The more engaged the governing body and management are, the more responsive they are to our findings, the lesser the risk we have. So it's just one thing that we always have to assess. And then ensure that your financial statements are clear and transparent, and that it discloses all the information with no information that is misleading to the reader or can be misinterpreted in any way. So we try to make sure that it's properly written and communicate the point exactly. And then finally, communicate with the governing body the results of our audit. Some of management's responsibilities. Management is responsible for the financial statements. So this is really important, and we always try to clarify it, because we do believe that there is a gap between auditing standards and between expectations from clients and what do they expect an audit to cover. So we always try to, we're not saying that this is the case here, but we just try to clarify it in general, that management is ultimately responsible for the financial statements. So whether the financials have been audited or not, that does not relieve management from its responsibility. Management also signed a management representation letter to us before we issue the opinion that basically says that we have disclosed to you everything that we know of. We have recorded all transactions. We have ownership to all of our assets. We are not aware of any fraud. And we put reliance on this letter. So we look at management as the one ultimately responsible for the financials. Of course, we are responsible from an auditor perspective to basically give you reasonable assurance that those financial statements are free of material misstatements. So the word reasonable and the word material are key words, because reasonable assurance is not an absolute assurance. And also, we don't give you an assurance that the financial statements are completely free of misstatements, but only material misstatements. So there may be still some smaller misstatements there that will not be covered by our audit. Management is responsible for establishing and maintaining internal control over financial reporting. We will review those controls and make sure that they're properly designed, but it is management's responsibility to establish those controls. They are also responsible for making all financial records available to us. So they can't tell us, sorry, we can't provide you this, it's in storage. They really have to figure out a way to provide us the backup documentation. Adjust the financial statements to correct any material misstatements. Establish internal controls to prevent and detect fraud. Inform us of all known and suspected fraud. and comply with laws and regulations. So it is not our responsibility to let management know what laws and regulations are out there. However, when you don't comply with them and we become aware of it, we will definitely write you up for it. However, we as a firm, we're not going to stand back if we know that the city is not familiar with certain laws and we know of these laws. Of course, we're going to tell the city, you know, be careful, these laws are out there and you need to comply with them. But it's not ultimately our responsibility to let the city know of that. And then finally, take corrective action on audit findings. So these are really management responsibilities towards the process. Our independence. Our independence is solely our responsibility. We have to make sure that we remain independent from the city. We follow the AICPA standards, the California Board of Accountancy standards. We have internal procedures in our firm to make sure that there are no independence issues. For example, we circulate a questionnaire that lists all of our clients to all of our staff, and we ask them to identify any direct or indirect relationship with any of these clients. We make sure to remove that individual from those audits if they have any direct or indirect relation. Any extra service that we provide to the city, we have to assess how this impacts our independence. So for example, if you were to prepare your financial statements or if you ask us to do any kind of consulting work, we have to first assess what the impact on our independence, whether we can do it or not, and then make a decision based on that. So it's solely our responsibility to remain independent, and definitely we are independent as of right now, and we will continue to be. Timing of the audit, today was the first day, so basically we're scheduled to be here for the whole week, and like you saw, we have a team of 4 people, and we are confident that this will be sufficient to get the work done. So that's really the timing of the audit. And I'm not sure if you're interested in that, but I will just highlight a couple of items. So in 2014, you have 4 new accounting standards to implement. I can't say that any of them is really significant. 65 will be one that is a lot of accounting issues that I don't want to bother you with. Be working definitely close with Emily on making sure that this is implemented properly. Next year is really your biggest year. You have 2 huge accounting standards to implement, and that's GASB 68 and 71. They both are related. They both deal with pension. Pension is going to be a very, very big accounting standards to implement. It's going to put really big numbers on your balance sheet. Not in a positive way, in a negative way. You're going to be adding liabilities to your balance sheet, same like every other municipality in the country. But those liabilities, so far, I didn't look at your numbers, but every other city I looked at, the numbers are big. So this will be coming next year. It does require a lot of coordination with CalPERS, with basically your pension plan. There are information that is needed that are not currently available, and CalPERS will be providing this information. You have to request it from CalPERS. They're not going to voluntarily provide it to you, and they will charge you for it. So I do encourage you to start the process early, to start the dialogue with CalPERS and make sure that the information is there and that you're on top of what needs to be done. And of course, you can always use us as resources to provide you technical assistance on how to implement those. Part of remaining independent is that we cannot be the one developing the numbers on behalf of the city, because we are the one who's going to audit the numbers at the end. But we can definitely assist you with the approach. We can tell you, this is the way to do it. This is where you can get the information, and review the information at the end and let you know whether we agree with it or not. So we'll do whatever we can to assist the city while maintaining our independence. So just wanted to let you know that this is really a big thing coming next year. Other than that, if you have any questions, you can ask this guy, or you can ask me as well. Please use my email also if you feel that there is any information that you would like to communicate with me. Other than that, thank you very much for allowing us to provide service to the city. We are very excited to be here, and I look forward to work with all of you.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Badawi?
Just a quick question. Is the audit committee going to reconvene with you at some other point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Normally what we do is we like to meet with the audit committee twice. Once before the start of the audit, or usually with our larger audits, we meet with them during the audit because it happens on multiple phases. But with an audit like yours, we would like to meet at the beginning of the audit, and the purpose of that is to really gather information to help us with planning the audit. And then at the conclusion of the audit, to really communicate to you the results, the audit findings, any adjustments, anything of that nature. So yes, we would like another meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Other questions? I'd like to say and thank you for allowing us to meet your staff. I know
Oh.
it's not just you that's here. You have a whole staff, what, 4 or 5
Yes.
other people here. So we have a full group of you.
Yes. And they're all certified CPAs, with the exception of Kevin, who is really just very young and working hard on getting his CPA license as well.
Okay, and I want to apologize for the sun coming through. We don't usually have this problem. So you talked right
It's
through
really
it. I
you, but
appreciate it.
I'm okay. My back is to the sun.
Normally it just
Okay.
hits me.
Was there any question?
I just wanted to thank you for the thorough presentation. We haven't had one from our auditor before, so this was really nice.
You're quite welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, again, enjoy your week, and I hope everything goes well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar then. Let me say briefly that we're going to consider approval of the regular meeting minutes from August 18th, receiving and file warrant claims list for the period of August 9 through September 5, receiving and filing the bi-weekly payroll reports, receiving and filing monthly budget to actual financial report for the city's major operating funds for the month of August 2014, authorizing city manager to sign a $5,000 amendment to Susan Mayer, to the Susan Mayer contract to assist the city in pursuing modification of sewer rate revolving loan fund, taking action as necessary and appropriate, and authorizing the mayor, myself, to sign a CHP letter of grant support, appointing Fire Chief Steve Wakefield as Crescent City Regional Focused High Collision Reduction Campaign Task Force member. So those items are before us on the consent calendar. I'd like to ask first if there's any public comment on the consent calendar. Okay, seeing no public comment. Did you have a comment, sir? No? Okay, so we'll bring it back to the council.
I had a quick question before we take a vote. I know we've already entered into a $7,500 contract with Susan Mayer, and from what I understand, the packet was finished and sent to the state, and I'd like to know exactly what we're going to get for an additional $5,000.
And have Ms. Boyd answer that question?
Thank you.
Susan Mayer has been helping us with that financial document, and in fact has been invaluable to the project team that's working on this renegotiation of the loan. We wanted to have some additional contract money available. If we are still in conversations with the state, we haven't finalized anything with them. We wanted to have some funds available if we need to use her for an additional report, or if we need to use her for time to meet with us and the water board in Sacramento. So we're trying to be proactive and have this resource available to us should we need it.
So we've already expended the $7,500?
Correct.
Seems like a lot of money.
So is it your pleasure to remove this from the consent calendar, or do you want to just go forward?
Mayor, I just
Yes.
like to add, the expertise that Ms. Mayer has provided to staff in working with us, it has been very valuable moving forward, and I guess the amount of information and documentation and analysis that we've gone through here to present the information that the State Water Board has requested. Susan Mayer was pretty integral to helping us out in getting that done with our daily operations and work that we need to get done. So it's if we need her to help us take that next step with questions that the water board may have, possibly helping us with some representation in Sacramento. She is near Sacramento, and could help us out there as well. So it's just
Right.
prudent.
I'm not discounting all of
Yeah.
her valuable input and preparing us for the application that we made to the state. I just find it hard to believe we need another $5,000 in services since all of the information is already at the state level.
At this point, I don't anticipate that we're going to use that whole amount, but it'd be nice to the what-ifs of this project, to have that, so we can move forward in kind of a seamless motion.
And you feel it's information you can't handle as a team?
Ms. Mayer is, kind of an integral part of the team to help us, put this information together. So, if we didn't have the contract yet, we would, make it happen. It just makes it easier with staff, with, our additional workloads that we deal with on a daily basis. So, the request is to continue with Ms. Mayer on that contract. You want to add to that?
I think what I'd like to do at this point is something a little bit different than I've done before. I'd like to go ahead and pull number 6, and we can actually vote separately on that if we could, because I don't want to put anybody in a difficult position here. So let's go to the consent calendar as a whole and consider, unless there's other questions on the consent calendar, and consider items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, it's been moved and approved to approve those areas.
Second.
Okay, very good. So we have a second. Any other discussion? So would you please poll the vote on the consent calendar?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau?
Yes.
And Mayor Holly.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So let's take up item number 6 regarding the $5,000 amendment to Susan Mayer's contract. Is there any further discussion on that?
I think
I'd like to say a couple things. The 5,000 is only if we need her, if the state has further questions, and she's probably the person that can answer that. And that's not an additional 5,000 total, because that 5,000 is coming from the Wildan contract that was not used. But the thing I think is important about this is we have to try everything we can to get that load modification, because it could be, as our report says, up to $18 million in savings. And so I think it's well worth the $5,000 if we even have to use it to save a possible $18 million. So I'm in favor of keeping it in reserve in case we need her to use it.
And we can, certainly report to the council as we utilize those services and let you know, where we're at. I think Ms. Boyd had some additional items or something else to add.
Ms. Boyd?
I just wanted to comment that Susan Mayer brings a certain financial expertise to this project that is vital to us. She has greater financing experience, perhaps, that is truly invaluable to us. And I think that it's given, as Mr. Ania just indicated, given the size of the project and the potential benefit to the city, I think it would behoove us to take advantage of all the resources that we could possibly find.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve item number 6 on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the $5,000 amendment to Susan Mayer's contract. Any further discussion? Okay, would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau?
Yes.
And Mayor Holly.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That completes our consent calendar. We'll move on to reports and presentations. The first presentation is that of the Redwood Coast Explorer Leadership Academy of 2014 video by Mackenzie Williams.
Yeah. And Mayor Holly, this is, we've reported on the Explorer Post Academy, quite a bit. Through that process, Mackenzie Williams, put together a video on the week that the Explorers went through. I think it's on Facebook and on the web right now, but it is a very impressive video again that she put together. And we thought it would be prudent to just air it at a council meeting to let the public know that it's out there and give the council firsthand view of that. I don't know if Chief Barry, you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I'd like to add is that she's done some excellent work for the department regarding the recruitment and now with the Explorers. And it's been an outstanding program. And this one just shows how hard those Explorers work, and they do it because they have the support of the community and the council, and I thank you for that. It's a really good job. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, let's go ahead and roll that. Yes, I'm sorry. I know, you're excited about this report, I know. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Academy, commonly referred to as the RCELA. If you are here, then you have accepted the challenge to better yourself. The only question that remains regards your level of fortitude. This week will not be easy. You will feel fatigue. You will feel pain. You will find yourself wanting to give up and retreat to the confines of your soft, warm bed in the security of your familiar home. Not everyone makes it through this week. That is why it's a leadership academy. To put it simply, this week will be a journey. My name is Eric Apperson, and I'm the RCELA Senior Academy Commander. My job, alongside Academy Commanders Trim and Yang, is to take you on that journey. You and the cadets around you will be challenged every day, all day, and sometimes in the middle of the night. You've chosen an interest in public safety. That's why you're here. You'll notice representatives from all branches of public safety in attendance at this year's RCELA. Explorers from the Crescent City Police Department, Del Norte Sheriff's Office, local fire department, Del Norte Ambulance, and the Naval Sea Cadets are all in attendance. You young men and women are the people that may someday run into the very chaos that others are running away from. You young men and women are the people that someday may compromise your safety and your security for the sake of a total stranger. As the people in charge of this Redwood Coast Explorer Leadership Academy, our job is to give you the mental tools and bearing to navigate through those rough waters and safely make it home to your loved ones. I have assembled a team of people to provide for you a top-notch learning experience at this year's academy. You will meet United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Charkey, and alongside of him, you will meet United States Army Staff Sergeant Clemens, and they will motivate you. You will have the resources of on-site academy advisors like Advisor Patch and Advisor Mitchell to help make your experience here as comfortable as possible. You'll be surrounded and supported by post advisors and volunteers from all over our community as you make your way through this week. You will receive instruction from professional women and men considered to be experts in their fields. The topics will include ethics, physical fitness, drug awareness, defensive tactics, gang awareness, and water survival. You will be exposed to oleoresin capsicum, more commonly referred to as pepper spray. This block of instruction will not be a pleasant one. You will rappel off the rock bluff at Pebble Beach under the strict supervision of Sergeant McNamara and his crew of men and women that make up the Del Norte County Search and Rescue Team. You will be certified in first aid and CPR. You will receive training and certification in the incident command system. You will be exposed to critical and stressful scenarios ranging from unknown explosions to traffic collisions with multiple casualties. You will run further and faster than you thought possible. You will jump over 6-foot walls, learn how to drag people to safety, and most importantly, you will all learn how to be a team. Becoming a team is what we're doing here. And even though the principles are the same, I don't mean the sort of team that puts points on a board. I'm referring to the sort of team that saves lives. Remember this, while we become a team, your only adversary is yourself, and you are only as fast as the slowest person on your team. Also remember that to lead, you must build more leaders, not more followers. Look to your left, look to your right, look behind you and in front of you. Help that person. When time comes, allow them to help you. There are only 2 ways to fail this academy. The first is by misconduct, and honestly, as I look around at you young men and women, I don't see that as an issue. The second way to fail this academy is to simply quit. Like I mentioned earlier, there may come a time during this week when you may want to let that feeling of defeat enter your head and heart. That feeling is a cancer and you must fight it. Fighting makes us stronger. It's not about the win or the loss, it's about the fight. Dig deep and refuse to quit. Think about the person beside you that wants to quit, and the only thing keeping them in this fight is knowing you're alongside of them. I can promise you this, if you don't quit on us, then we won't quit on you. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're here to work. Trim, Yang, let's get them ready.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any comments from the council? Catherine?
Well, just special thanks to Mackenzie Williams. She was my neighbor when she was little, so it's a real treat to see how much she's matured, and she did a great job in the police recruitment video. Special thanks to, not sure what your title was, Robin?
She's an advisor.
I'm an advisor.
Advisor Patch and Sergeant Apperson for all he's done, and Police Chief Plack, and all, the cadets and everyone. So it makes you so proud of all the cadets and everybody that's gone through all this. It's really a treat to see.
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
I was just going to say I was very honored to speak at their graduation, and Officer Apperson just stood on stage and talked about everything they had went through. And my son had just left for the Army, and I told the crowd that I was wondering how his first week of boot camp went, and I thought I'd just lived through it by hearing what Officer Apperson explained, but now I actually see it, and it's amazing. And these kids, they're the future, of Crescent City, and what I told him is that what they've done here is just, a small footprint, not that they'll just leave here in Crescent City, but, as they move on in their lives. And they are incredible young men and women, and I am so proud of them and all the people that make it happen. It's a very cool thing that we are able to provide for these kids. So
I agree.
thank you to everybody.
And thank you, staff, for bringing this film to our attention. Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll be moving on then. The next item on our agenda is a presentation of completed projects funded by the Proposition 50 grant.
Mayor Hawley and council members, Mr. Weir is going to present this item. Before he starts, I'd like to just say a couple of things. This project has been on and off our agenda for several years, and tonight's probably more of a celebration. Okay. It's kind of a closeout of this project. It's really turned out to be in the benefit of our community and of the city, and so we're going to turn this over to Mr. Weir so you can see the end result of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Weir.
Thank you, Mr. Palazzo, Mayor Hawley, members of the council. I'd first like to thank Mr. Palazzo for putting me after that wonderful presentation.
Yeah, we always like that.
That's kind of a tough one to follow. So I'd like to invite Tom Romsberg up actually to kind of hum a song, maybe the Rocky theme song as we're going through, to try to compete a little bit with it. Yeah, so, something. Anybody have an iPhone or anything I can?
Robin can sing.
There you go.
It won't help enough. Don't. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so Prop 50, as Gene mentioned, this project has taken many twists and turns over the years. The city was first awarded this grant funding back in 2007. The intent of this grant funding was actually for the use of reclaimed water within the beachfront park to utilize our high-quality effluent that would now be produced by the treatment plant and use it to irrigate. So as the treatment plant project was completed in 2012, we looked at moving forward with using this funding for the irrigation of Beachfront Park. However, once we got into the details of that and started to work with the state for a couple of years, and they indicated what exactly it was going to take as far as the monitoring and sampling and ongoing maintenance of a reclaimed water irrigation system, it quickly became apparent that this project wasn't going to be feasible with the grant money that we had, nor the ongoing cost that it was going to take to maintain this infrastructure that we would now have. So at this point, the grant was set to run out in 2014. So we quickly turned our attention to other uses of the funding, and we're working with the state staff. Came up with a Fred Inert Pool energy efficiency project, in which we'd be able to use the high quality effluent, pipe it to the pool, and utilize almost a geothermal type of effect to utilize this water now to heat the pool. So we were off and running with that. As we proceeded down that path, though, once it reached a little higher level in Sacramento, it was deemed non-qualifying because it was a pool energy project instead of a reclaimed water type project. So now we're into 2013, and we have a little bit less than a year now to spend this money. We have over $900,000 that the city was granted, and we didn't have a project to spend it on. So this wasn't an acceptable solution. So Gene and I and former Finance Director Ken McDonald hopped in a car and we headed to Sacramento. We sat down, and I'd like to thank the Prop 50 grant staff as well. that were willing to meet with us. They were very nice, very professional people. We sat down at a table and we figured out a course of action so that the city could implement this funding. Part of that course of action was that we could spend this money on improvements to the treatment plant that did allow us to create this high-quality effluent. The caveat to it was it had to be expenditures that happened after 2007 and weren't covered by SRF loan. So that left that amount of project was limited. We also looked at some other completed projects that the city had done. We'd completed an MBR chemical storage tank project, so that was already complete, and we could utilize the funding for that as well. We looked at the primary clarifier rehabilitation. That was underway at that point. You know, these were projects that we needed to do anyway. They're part of our capital improvement plan, so we were able to utilize the money for that. That left about $450,000 of unused money. So then we pulled out our capital improvement plan. We came up with the most needed project, which was the headwork screen project. So at this point, we are in November of 2013. We have $450,000 to spend, and we need to spend it by the end of March, so roughly 5 months. So we need to design, we need to bid, we need to contract this project out. This project was, it was installed, planned, and managed all by city staff. Failure is not an option. You know, once you proceed down the path, and I'd like to give the council a lot of credit for this as well, that the confidence that they had, obviously, in staff and our ability to get it done. You have to contract something like this out. It doesn't just happen. And if you miss it, according to the grant people, if we miss this by a day or two and it wasn't installed and operational, we would not receive reimbursement for this. So we had to buy the equipment. The equipment came from Italy. It had to get here on time. It had to be installed. And all this had to be done before the end of March. So the implementation of the headwork screen was done in 1 day. This was planned, and I'd like to give a lot of credit to Mr. Romsberg, who's going to speak after me, Jason Wiley, Kevin Tutman, you know, the whole Public Works crew for pulling this one off, and it's exceeded everyone's expectations with the implementation of the project. So we actually achieved substantial completion 3 weeks before our grant deadline. So as a summary of the project, we were able to complete some design or being reimbursed for some design bid management of the treatment plant project. We installed the MBR chemical storage tanks. We completed a primary clarifier rehabilitation. We upgraded the plant's headwork screen that I spoke briefly about, and then also installed a new auto dialer system as well as a hazardous gas analyzer system. So as of the grant completion deadline of March 31st, we're able to get reimbursed for $910,000 of the state's money. So with that, I will let Mr. Romsberg come, and he'll kind of walk you through some of the pictures, and you can take a look at some of the projects we're able to complete.
What song is he going to sing?
Up to him.
No singing. You don't believe me, you don't want to sing.
I don't want to adjourn
So I have the
meeting.
easy part on this. I get to show the pictures and talk about it. But before I show the pictures, this was a team. There was a lot of timing here. There was staff. All aspects of this made it happen, because at the end of the day, there would have been lost opportunity here if everybody didn't work together. So a lot happened. So going to the first picture takes you back to the plant, where a portion of this grant was able to use for these expenditures that Eric had mentioned after 2007. So, whoops, operating error here. So this should all look familiar. That first picture was the big phase 1 construction, showing some electrical work, just a few conduits. And this is an MCC, one of the electrical pictures you've probably seen before, but we did get to use some of this phase 1. This is a familiar site. Well, this money went to cover some of these costs. The control room, as it stands now, actually there's some new screens from other grants. So, you know, this is, it continues to evolve. And then we kind of get into the newer stuff that we saw recovery on. One is the MBR chemical tank, and this is the pre-concrete pour. So you can see a lot of rebar and the pour. The pad, you're following, there's a logical pattern here. Probably the tanks are going to be next, and they are. And remember, this is part of the MBR to store some of the process waste. These are double-walled tanks so that has an environmental safety. Here's the tanks being set. And there they are, and they're strapped down. And this was, I got involved with this project at the end, but this was a big team effort where where the city crews, there was a lot of involvement by all aspects of the city getting this done. It had a deadline, we met the deadline. This is the outlet of the tank, and this kind of goes back to the purpose of the project was to have a controlled way of putting that liquids back into the system, but doing it in a very controlled and safe way. And that's what this is showing. So that was one of the projects. Primary clarifier flights. So this is a picture inside an empty clarifier with an upgrade that we did under grant funds that shows the flights. And those flights are those horizontal, they were redwood originally. What was in there is old growth redwood. And now these are upgraded with a synthetic material. So that was an important project to help in the efficiency of the primary clarifier. Another project we did clarifier is deck replacement on the primary. There was a deck that went back 60s maybe. Its time had come and gone, and then some. So we were able to use Prop 50 on that. There's a lot going on here. We did a lot in a short time. These are the headwork screen, and these are the crates that arrived from Italy that had to meet the deadline, couldn't miss it by a day. It was a very, very compressed schedule. So this is stuff being staged, and we planned this job, and it was a very integrated team effort by all involved. This is a headwork screen that we had to, while we're putting this in, we have to treat the materials, so we have to bypass. So we had to design a temporary screen. Some had named it the Terrible Tom, but I want to take credit for it. Not why I got the name, and anyways, it sort of worked. It did the job. It did the necessary, and it was inexpensive. So that was part of the coordination. So now a whole bunch of shots of this whole system going in. And the interesting part on this is you have this old system running. You got to pull it out. You got to put the new one in. You got to keep the plant running because the waste product doesn't stop, right? We know that it's coming to the plant. So it was a very integrated stage project with a lot of teamwork. So this is kind of pulling the old stuff out. Here comes some of the old equipment coming out. Getting the channel ready for the augers. See, there's no flow there. That's where all the waste normally comes through. Here we're getting ready to lift. You see a lot of team effort, a lot of people, a crane out there. So whole iteration here, lifting and setting and trying to fit those in. It was a very tight fit. And now they're being set in. There's a lot of safety considerations here that we had to manage. So they're being set into the channel. So all this really happened. The main mechanical was in and out one day. So we had a sequence built where at 9:15 we started drilling, and all the way through the day it was all set up that way, and it was really neat because everybody there was really excited about we were getting something done, and it was just a real good and positive environment. So we're setting the augers. Now we're setting the washer compactor. We're kind of getting the main mechanical stuff done. Now there are a few wires to connect. See that bundle of wires? Yeah, so that was a bit to do. So a lot of electrical. There they are. And so these screen out whatever comes into the wastewater plant, and you have two sides, so you have some redundancy, and there's a lot of advantages to that. And it's working good. Another shot of the equipment. Kind of what it looks like right now if you look over the rail. Some of the controls. I got carried away here, I think, in putting the pictures in, but PLC SCADA control. Okay. This one, I think Eric wanted this out of the presentation, but I said, you got to show this. This is what comes out of the washer compactor, and it's clean material that comes through the system. It gets washed, and that's what goes out, and it reduces volume, and it's very effective. So, and it reduces what goes out to sludge. So it's a good thing, but so that was the end of the screen, and then there was a couple other projects we did, and this was kind of related to it in a way. Hazardous gas analyzers that monitor down in the wet wells in certain areas in the plant, and they monitor CO and combustibles and oxygen level. So we got this project done. Eric had mentioned an auto dialer, which is an upgrade to our alarm system. We have the original system, it would dial out like plant common alarm. And you come into the plant in the middle of the night and you find out what it is. This has over 100 channels, so it gives you a lot more detail on what's coming out in the utilities. So this is a really good improvement. Plant hoist was another. We just piled them on. We were doing projects as we pushed it to get this stuff done. Not a very good picture by the photographer here, but upgraded hoist. This is over the screen system, and there's a doghouse, a whole new enclosure. So a long list of stuff here, and a lot of pictures, but we got a lot done. This next slide shows the receipt of the reimbursements, which are very important. You pay for this stuff and getting the money back in and balancing it out. So the last payment was just received last month, totaling $910,000. So what about the benefits? Well, the first part we showed is it helped cover some of the costs of phase one of the plant. And that allowed us to get through the cease and desist. The other thing that it did that's really important is it funded some projects that were really part of our capital program. And that allowed a grant to pay for something that would be otherwise be borne by ratepayers. And as a disadvantaged community, we know this is critical for the city to utilize these sources of funding, which kind of brings in, if you look at what is city really doing, we're very active in grants. Prop 50 is just one. And if you kind of go through, Eric handed me a list, we kind of made a list before this. He said, well, what are the other ones recently? Well, they did Second Street project, right? CDBG, $1.3 million. A FEMA project for the fire hall, $750,000. EDA grant for the RV park, $750,000. Prop 84 for the elevated tank that we recently pushed, yeah, that's $500,000. There's a pool ADA CDBG project, $160,000. And then that's sort of what's in the realm right now. And then you look forward, and there's more things coming down the line on CDBG and further, the B Street project, $1.5 million. So Prop 50 was a big success, but there's a lot of grant activity, and the city staff is extremely active in it and pursuing these and trying to get this stuff into the community and alleviate it from the ratepayer. So that was it. No songs, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Very impressive.
It's much better than a song, Tom.
It is. So, I'm not sure it's required, but I will take public comment on this, because if someone always wanted to talk about a sewage auger, now's your chance. I don't want to take that from anyone. So, public comment on this. Okay, seeing none, then back to the council. Any comments? Questions?
I'm just extremely pleased. I've been through this whole process since 2007. So I was disappointed back in the day when we weren't able to make the reclaim water projects work because of state issues, but it looks like everything happens for a reason. And great job, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never have a doubt that we have any doubts about you guys, because we have the best city staff in the entire nation or the world. So we'll always have faith in you. You really are the best. So everybody, seriously.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'd like to say that the original catch when we were about to lose those funds and going down and seeing our way to almost $1 million, that's impressive. So thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so we'll move on to our agenda. Thank you very much. Now is the time when we have the public comment period. Any member of the audience is invited to address the City Council on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City. Comments of interest or on matters appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, that the Council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items could be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. Any comments that are not at the microphone are out of order and will not be a part of the public record. After receiving recognition from myself, please state your name and city or county residency for the record. Please comment. You should know that public comment is limited to 3 minutes. So, is there any public comment this evening? Oh, we have someone, an excited public commentor.
Hi, Mayor and City Council and attendees. My name is Phoebe Lenhart. I'm a new resident here in Crescent City. I'm very excited to be here in Crescent City. And I wanted to come before you and just share a couple of observations. One is a matter that all of us are concerned about, and this is in regard to the drought. Being a new resident in Crescent City, I've been out exploring the area, getting familiar with different places, public places and so on. And I've noticed that there's a huge lacking of signage in regard to this is a drought and we do need to conserve water. I've been in different public buildings and so on, and I have not seen much of any signage. And so I just wanted to bring this before you, as I'm sure that we all need to be reminded and definitely do need to put into practice water conservation. And so that is one observation to share with you. My other observation is in regard to the news that has come out recently, at least I know it's news to me, about the elk population. And I would just like to say that I would like to see Crescent City and Del Norte County to be, if I could use the word, the expression elk-friendly. I know that there is a concern about the population, but I'm also aware that there are other alternatives that are available besides hunting. I know the Bureau of Land Management has been working on birth control methods with wild horses, so I would like to suggest that for Crescent City and the county that we look into other birth control methods besides killing. And I just thank you so much for your time and love Crescent City and the county. It's a beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Crescent City. I appreciate it. Okay, any other public comment? Yes, sir. Jesse?
Jesse Salisbury, Crescent City. I like to say the only elk I know that were ever killed, the people went to jail, so I don't think they were really doing a lot of elk killing. Thankfully, I mean, I love the elk here. One, I'd like to know that if Prop 50 was for recycling water, what water have we recycled with the Prop 50 funds?
Go ahead and make your comment.
Okay.
I don't go back.
Also, I'd like to bring back to your attention that I'd like to for us to look into the BMX park that we were going to do about 10 years ago. I went down to City Hall today and talked with Mr. Palazzo and Mr. Weir and brought it to their attention. And coming back here and bringing it to your attention, I'd like to put it on a future agenda as a discussion item. The kids were promised 10 years ago that they were going to get a BMX park to keep them out of the skate park. Two of the council members at that time took it on as pet projects, and they, well, of course, are not here anymore. So I'd like for us to look back at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. And we don't usually answer the public comments, but I can say that the original idea was to reclaim the recycled water, but that didn't work out, but we're able to use that funding for other water-related activities. Does that help? Okay.
And also, I just wanted to say that I like the point that she made about education for the drought. We are, just to bring her up to speed, all of the restaurants in the city of Crescent City have the information at every table. It's on our city website. We have been talking about it at all of our meetings, and these are live on the internet and then also rebroadcast on TV twice a week. And then also, there is a big Caltrans sign above Highway 101 that is about the drought as well. So probably not as much as we could, but we are, trying to get that information out there.
Thank you. Okay, so any other public comment? No? Okay, moving on. We'll adjourn the regular meeting of the City Council, and we'll go ahead and go to the Crescent City Housing Authority. So we're going to go to the agenda of the Crescent City Housing Authority. I'll call the meeting of the authority to order. I'll dispense with the roll call. We're all still here? Okay. And under communications, I'll just read this very quickly because it's required. Any member of the audience is invited to address the Housing Authority on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the Crescent City Housing Authority. Comments of public interest or on matters not otherwise appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, that the agency is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. After receiving recognition from myself, please state your name for the record, and as with the City Council, we're limiting public comment to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on the Crescent City Housing Authority? Okay, so we will move out of the public comment period. We'll go to the consent calendar. Tonight, the consent calendar consists of approval of the regular minutes from June 16th and approval of warrant claims from August 9 through September 5.
Chairman, I move for approval of items 1 and 2 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. As a technical matter, is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we have a movement and a second. Motion and a second, I should say. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back for a vote. Would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Excuse me. Vice Chair Gastineau?
Yes.
And Chairman Hawley. I'll get
Yes.
it right at the end.
Okay. Well, English was never my strong point. Housing Director's Report, we have none. No business items, no public hearing, no continuing business, no new business. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Crescent City Housing Authority, but we will then convene as the Crescent City successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency. So again, I call this meeting to order, and I'll dispense with the roll call. Again, we're all here. Public comment period. Any member of the audience is invited to address the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency. Comments of public interest or on matters not otherwise appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, that the agency is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. After receiving recognition from myself, please state your name for the record. And again, there's 3 minutes for public comment. So are there any public comments on the Crescent City successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency? Okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have approval of the regular meeting minutes from June 16th, approval of the warrant claims from August 9th through September 5th, and consideration and approval of resolution number S8 2014-14, a resolution of the successor agency to dissolve the redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City, approving a recognized obligation payment schedule pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 34177I for the period of January 1, 2015 through June 30, 2015. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. I think what we should do perhaps is take numbers 1 and 2 on the consent calendar, because I think we'll have a presentation on number 3. Is that correct?
Please, standalone doesn't include the presentation. It's the our recognized obligation payment
Very
schedule.
good. Thank you for the correction. So we'll go ahead and take the consent calendar as a whole.
I'll move that we approve items 1, 2, and 3 on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been, the entire consent calendar has been moved and seconded. So if there's no further discussion, would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Board Member Murray?
Yes.
Board Member Shalong?
Yes.
Board Member Ania?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gastineau?
Yes.
And Chairman Hawley.
Yes, thank you. There's no executive director's report, although she's here. No, she's not. We're here. And he. And so presentations. We're going to have a presentation regarding impact of repayment of interfund loan by Don Frazier of Frazier and Associates.
Yeah, and Mayor, I'd like to introduce Mr. Frazier and just, a brief introduction to talk about Mr. Frazier's experience and how he's come to the city to help us. And Mr. Frazier's been working with the city of Crescent City for the last 3 years in our winding down process with redevelopment, assists us in the preparation of our ROPS, for the past several times that it's been required. I think he's been before the council before, definitely to the oversight board with some presentations. Don is a former redevelopment financial analyst. He's worked in public and private, worked with cities as finance director, assistant city manager, transitioned to private consulting with Catalyst for about 8 years, a private company, and then moved into his own business for the last 15 years. He represents multitude of cities throughout California, mainly in the redevelopment field, and I think recently has transitioned to just a finance analyst, specializing in property tax expertise. He's sat on multiple community redevelopment agency committees as an advisor, kind of assisting CRA, which used to be our state organization for redevelopment. When the dissolution process started, he sat on an ad hoc committee to assist, I guess the legislators, within that process. So it comes to us a lot of experience. One of the issues that we are, kind of dealing with right now is, our interloans with our dissolved redevelopment agency, and we've asked Don to kind of, take a look at that, analyze that for us. Like him here today to present that to the council. Later on the city council agenda, we have a recommendation for a loan agreement, and we will be presenting this to the oversight board tomorrow. We're trying to capture Don's expertise while he's here and have both meetings kind of back to back. So I'd like to present Mr. Frazier.
Okay, Mr. Frazier, thank you.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. So I can see the chart I brought for you for the audience is just about unreadable. So, before I get into some of the numbers and all, let me do a little bit of background about this and set that up, and then maybe we don't need to focus quite so much on this detailed chart, which is a little bit confusing anyway, but we can use it for some examples of what's happening. So to take a step back, before the redevelopment agency was dissolved, it borrowed money from the city's water fund. That loan is outstanding in the amount of about $1.2 million. It also borrowed money to make a payment to the state for what was called the CRAF, which was the Supplemental Education Revenue Augmentation Fund. It was a way for the state to take money out of redevelopment. Before they decided to just dissolve it completely, they were taking money out of redevelopment on an annual basis pretty much when they had budget problems. So the agency had borrowed from its housing fund, and it owes that money back, and that's outstanding at about $300,000. The decision point for all of you to come to grips with, and also for the oversight board, is should the oversight board approve re-entering into the water fund loan agreement and allowing some of the money that's coming through the successor agency to be used to repay that. And as part of that, the CRAF loan would also have to be repaid. That's one point. The alternative is, if that isn't approved, either you decide as a policy body you prefer not to do that, or the oversight board won't approve it, then the alternative is to dissolve the successor agency. There's essentially no other purpose for the successor agency to serve except to repay debts. And those are the two debts it has, and when they're paid, redevelopment in the old sense of the word would go away, and also the successor agency will go away. And there's probably a handful of successor agencies around the state that have dissolved because they've paid all their debts off. Most of the clients that I work for will be in business for 20 to 30 years because they sold bonds, and they have private investors that own the debt, and the money that used to go to the redevelopment agency goes through the successor agency now, needs to go to pay them first. So you are not in that position. You're sort of the masters of your own fate as to what you decide to do. So the analysis that I've provided here for you is, what's the impact on the city? What is your better position financially if you repay the water loans or if you dissolve the agency? And the same situation in regards to what happens to all the other taxing agencies and what's the situation with them. So let me explain to you a little bit about how under the Dissolution Act property taxes flow. So they used to be tax increment money. They went to the redevelopment agency, and the redevelopment agency used the money to borrow funds and build projects. So now we're in a situation where actually the money which goes to the county auditor is used first to reimburse the county for their administrative costs. Second, there are a series of what are called pass-through payments that actually go back to the county, the school districts, and the other entities. These were done either based on agreements that were entered into when the redevelopment project areas were adopted. There's 2 project areas. So those monies pass through to them under a contract arrangement, and they actually have some provisions in them that are quite lucrative to the taxing agencies. The surprising thing about the analysis to me, was that the county, for example, does better if they continue the successor agency redevelopment process than they would if you just dissolve. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's because their pass-through payments pay them at a higher rate at approximately 31% of the property tax dollar compared to what they would get if they dissolve, which is at about 19%. So it's advantageous to them to continue the process.
May I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely. Stop me anytime, because I'm assuming things you may not know, and if I am, you tell me, or if there's anything I can clarify, that would be helpful.
Right. So my understanding is that those pass-throughs were developed for revenue sharing when redevelopment dollars were gained.
Right.
Through that whole 20% blah, blah, blah process. Right. So now that there is no RDA and there is no revenue except for the money that is owed to the debt, why would the other agencies continue to receive part of that money? Because
the way the Dissolution Act was structured and the state law was structured, it required those payments under those agreements to continue to be honored. So it was a policy decision on the part of the state to continue to do that. And so the county auditor is charged with continuing to make those payments. And what I'm describing to you now is directly out of AB 26, which is the law that dissolved redevelopment agencies, the flow of funds. So the pass-through payments, that's the second thing that has to be paid, and it's required under the state law that you honor those agreements.
Can I get that? So where's the money coming from?
The money goes, okay, so it's all property tax. Take
Right.
a step back, everything is property tax. In 2013-14, there was about $950,000 that were between Project Area 1 and Project Area 2 that was available, that would have been redevelopment dollars.
Which the state took.
The state didn't take it. What they said was, here's how you divvy up the pot. So take the $950,000, and then county takes off the top its administrative fee. Second, under the negotiated agreements that had been done at the time of adoption, you pay those monies, and that money gets paid out. Third, you pay the obligations that the redevelopment agency had before we dissolved it. So those obligations, the only obligations that you have are the water loan and the CRAF loan, okay? And those were initially barred under the provisions of AB 26 from being repaid. You weren't allowed to do it. Then they passed another law, AB 1342. It clarified that, in fact, you could pay them under certain circumstances. And essentially the way that works, and I don't need to bore you with all the details, but it has to come out of the future growth of revenue. You have to lock in how distributions were being done in 2012-13, and then only the growth above that level can be used to pay these water fund loans back. That's why it's going to take years to do it, to pay CRAF and the water loan back. Then the successor agency gets to claim a certain amount of money for its administration. And then whatever's left over after that is what is called residual. And that residual money gets distributed amongst the taxing agencies as well. And that's how the pot of money is allocated. I know, really simple, right?
Well, you're actually very clear.
Good, okay.
Yeah, I can follow you.
Okay, great. Because that's what the chart, which is, you all can see it on the screen in front of you, but it's very hard for the public to see this chart. But essentially, I'll walk you through essentially how to read this and what it means. This is the way, this is directly from the county auditor controller's records of how money was split in 2013-14 among the taxing agencies. So the first column that I put on here, which is the first column is actually the list of the names of all the entities that share in the property tax. That's on the left side. For the public, very hard for you to see any of this. But the next column is how the dollars were split up for purposes of pass-through payments. And what I've titled that is pre-ERAF. So let me back this up a step and explain that to you. Back in the early 90s, the state was broke, if you remember, once again. And so what they did was they said cities, counties, and special districts all have to pay money to ERAF, Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund. We're shifting part of your property tax to this. Those dollars now are going to go into this fund, and that money is going to go to education. What it really did was it left less backfill for the state to make. Okay, because schools are funded from a combination of property taxes and state aid. The more property tax, the less state aid you need. So by setting up the ERAF and shifting money from the city, county, special districts, the state had to put less money in. It saved them something like $2 billion back in the 90s, and they used that to help balance their budget. So, but because of the way the pass-through payments were structured, they were structured in such a way that the pass-throughs are being made before the ERAF dollars are distributed. And that's where the benefit's coming in for the county and for some of the other entities that are getting those pass-through payments. So that's what the pass-through dollar amount represents. So for example, Del Norte County got in 2013-14 close to $195,000 just from their pass-through. The next column is, this is the residual revenue I was describing to you. What's left over after you pay everything else, and how does that get distributed? All the entities get a share of that. Del Norte got $51,000. The city, if you go down near the bottom, got $48,000. Then the next column over just totals those together. The one after that is the county's administrative fee, which goes back to cover their cost of administering the property tax system. So to use the county as an example, in 2013-14, they got $333,000 of the $956,000 that came in for the year. Then what I did was I just compared
on city property.
On city property, on property within the former redevelopment project areas.
Okay, thank you.
Then I compared that using county records once again with what they would have gotten. If you dissolve redevelopment, then ERAF has to enter the picture. So now, under the column percentage, post-ERAF percentage share, the county goes from 31% to around 19%. What they would get as their normal property tax falls to $164,000. Their administrative fee, they still get, so they would have gotten $251,000 without the successor agency. So they actually gained $82,000 in the system for the year. And if you look at the city, on the other hand, the city in 2013-14 would have done better in the far right column if there had been no redevelopment. They lost approximately $4,000. Now the reason it was disadvantageous to the city in 13-14 was you couldn't pay any of the water fund loan back. And so without the ability to pay that back, you actually lose money in this scenario. But when you load in the water fund and the CRAF loan, actually over time, the city will do better over time by getting those repaid. And I can go through the next chart, but before we do that, there's one other point I wanted to make, which was about the schools. The schools also get a pass-through payment. Now, they are reimbursed for any loss in their operating fund because of redevelopment by the state. But they also get these pass-through dollars, which are protected primarily from state raid. So in other words, they get to keep most of that money. By my calculations, it's about 90% of what they got in the pass-through. So I put at the bottom, in the little box at the bottom, the school benefit from retaining the redevelopment or the successor agency process. So in 13-14, the schools got $157,000 in pass-through, and they got to retain roughly $144,000 of that. And that's money they can use for facilities, improvements, all of that kind of thing. So there's a benefit for them as well from continuing the successor agency redevelopment process. So from there, what I did was I built on what the 13-14 numbers told me about how things were flowing. And so I took the current year revenues and assessed values, and I grew those at the minimum Prop 13 allowed 2% growth rate. And I did the same kind of thing with the going forward with what I had seen in 13-14, which is what the next, if we go to the next chart, that's what the next chart shows, is these future allocations. And it's probably easier for us just to sort of focus on a couple of things that are on this chart. So if I go to the city of Crescent City, and this works the same way, left side of the chart, payments with the successor agency, right side of the chart's payments without them, and you take them out. So if we look at the city, essentially over the next 23 years, the city would get roughly $2.9 million if the successor agency remained. It represents, the city also, by the way, gets a small pass-through payment, so that's about $370,000. The city gets a share of the residual, just like everybody else, that'd be about $1.1 million. But then as the water fund loan and the CRAF loan get repaid, those numbers are under the column called Other now. So the $1.4 million is an accumulation of repaying the water fund loan, the CRAF loan, and then some of the administrative money that would flow back because the successor agency gets to take, and I think we budgeted at roughly $30,000 a year. So you'd have about $1.4 million. So in total, you'd be at about $2.9 million. Without the successor agency, you'd be at about $2 million. And so your benefit is right around $900,000. And essentially what you're doing is, if you continue the successor agency, you'll be able to repay the water loan. You won't repay the whole thing, at least not with 2% growth. You'll be able to repay about $500,000 to $600,000 of the $1.2 million. If it grows at 3%, you'll be able to pay more. If it grows at 4%, you'll be able to pay even more, because the more the revenue grows, then more money is that's going to flow and be available to help pay that water loan. So that's what will happen. But this is sort of the minimal picture. Even at a minimal picture, you would have a better flow of money. But you're trading restricted dollars, right? So you're trading money that goes to a water fund. You're trading money that stays with the successor agency to pay some admin costs. You're trading money that stays in the housing fund. So the money that goes to the CRAF, that gets repaid from the CRAF, has to go over to the housing fund. But it gives you a pot of money to do affordable housing projects with. So it's not like it's useless money. It's good money. It's just, it's not general fund money. You don't have as much control over it. And so that's generally the picture. Now, who loses in this? Property taxes are, they're just a zero-sum game. There's only so much, and it just gets distributed. So the loser is, first of all, if you look at the chart and you go to the far right side, the healthcare district loses a very tiny amount, about $13,000. That's over 23 years. The schools appear to lose, right? They're Del Norte Unified, for example, $730,000 in loss. But they get backfilled for that. And then if you go to the box at the bottom, I did the 23-year projection of their pass-through payments. So their pass-throughs are almost $7.6 million, and they would retain $6.8 million of that for their own internal uses. So they actually, even though they lose some money, they're the big winner from doing this, along with the county benefits, and obviously the city would. And the final entity that loses is the ERAF fund, which is really the state. And that's where most of this money's coming from, which they end up getting, because of the way the pass-throughs work and all of that, they end up getting close to $3 million less over that time period. But that's how it's being funded. But the state's giving you this alternative to take advantage of this. So you have to consider that. So with that, I'll stop and just allow you to ask me questions. And
Maybe we could use that when we go talk to them about the SRF loan. If they approve it, we'll keep our successor agency so that they can keep the $3 million. Otherwise, it goes away. That's kind of a good negotiation point, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
I completely followed you, and I think probably for the first time,
thank you.
I've understood this whole thing, and I've tried hard.
It's mind-boggling.
It is.
Very complicated.
Yes.
So you're saying we should use that as leverage, huh?
So is there anything on the horizon to give us any more relief in this? I hate to have it take that long to pay back the water. Do you know of any legislation or lawsuits that are out there? I do keep hearing.
There are many lawsuits over the whole dissolution process. There are, I'm not sure about the status on these interfund loans that have been made, but I have clients that have $30, $40 million at risk from these. And I know that the city of Glendale, because of the way the state structured this whole thing, it doesn't work for them at all. Essentially, the state has told them, even though they show 30 million or 40 million of loans outstanding, the state says it's zero because of the way they count the interest and some other technical matters. And I understand they filed a lawsuit on this. So there's always the potential that if you stay in this, some relief may come along and you may find yourself in a better position for getting these repaid, and you might be able to get the whole loan repaid. Yeah. So that's another potential advantage of staying with it. Oh. You know, an option could be you do it for 5 years and you see how it goes, and then you decide, just doesn't look like it's going to work for us. It's going to take too long. We don't want to mess with it anymore. So pretty close call for you guys, I think. And I'm not sure how the Oversight Board will react to this. They were not particularly interested in even approving the CRAF loan when that was taken to them last time. But they hadn't seen any of these numbers either.
I think this will make a difference.
I think this will help them if they see this, that there's advantages.
What about if there's a change at the top in California?
It's possible, you know, we just don't know whether a new administration, if they came in, would think that redevelopment was something that was important. I'm not sure if Governor Brown looks like he may get reelected. I'm not sure if he gets reelected there would be anything. But who knows, right? I mean, he's never been known as the most consistent man in the world, so it wouldn't be impossible that he would change his mind at some point about this as well. And the state doesn't need the money anymore, so, yeah, you know. So nice. Anyway.
So I had talked with Jean and Emily earlier, and they suggested I ask you this question.
Sure.
There wouldn't be any consequences if we defaulted on our loans with the RDA, no. Right? For our credit, it wouldn't make the city have bad credit because
it's between separate. You. Yeah, it's so totally internal.
That was one thing that concerned me.
Yeah.
And so, and the schools, they wouldn't be harmed if we dissolved, if the Oversight Board tomorrow morning voted to dissolve. They get backfilled by the state.
They would get, yes, they wouldn't lose any money to operate their, for operation, for salaries, all of that would be backfilled by the state. So they would be okay there. But they do potentially have a lot of money at risk in terms of the pass-through, the additional money that they potentially could keep, and I think they have an interest in continuing this, I would think. So
they're on our board, our oversight board,
right?
And that was early on we had discussed dissolving it because it's a lot of administrative work for the city to continue with the reports, the ROPS and whatnot. And so we had talked about dissolving it, but then we thought it would harm the schools, and we didn't know about the backfill at the time that it was discussed, so we didn't want to harm the schools.
Right.
So, so that's what your understanding is. You've done all the studies and.
They would be backfilled, but they would no longer get that pass-through money. And it's significant. You know, when you look at it going forward, it's significant. I mean, if I were sitting in their shoes, I would say, I think it's better to get the loans repaid and let's keep doing this because it's advantageous to them. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, according to this future allocations chart, it makes a difference of $900,000 to us.
Yes.
As a city.
Yes, for you, there's clearly a benefit to continue going because you get the water loan paid, you get the CRAF money and all as well. So,
There's also a benefit to the county to do that.
And there's a benefit to the county because of the structure of the pass-through agreement. It actually, they end up in a better position than they otherwise would. So, I mean, it really looks like everybody is a winner other than some small amounts of money to one of the small districts other than to the state. And, but as local entities, if I were looking at it just from putting your hat on, it looks advantageous to everyone.
And one more thing is, so how soon would this decision need to be made? I mean, how timely would it need to be made?
Well, you've already filed your ROPS. You're going to file your ROPS, the next ROPS, which takes place next January. So if tomorrow the oversight board, and if I were sitting in their position, I might say maybe we should have Mr. Fraser's numbers looked at by somebody else, see if they come to the same conclusion. Maybe have the auditor look at them, let's say. So I don't think it's going to affect you if they want to spend a little more time researching this. It might make some sense. And so because you've already filed the next ROPS. So you can't get the water fund loan repaid on that one, then it wouldn't be till the next one after that. That would be the first opportunity to get it.
The ROPS is due October 3rd.
And the ROPS is due October 3rd. So that has to be done, that has to be filled out and sent in. And then if you want to take a little bit of time to study this a little bit further, if they do, and make a decision about it, there's still time to get it on the subsequent ROPS to that and start paying for it, So.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Brown?
It looks to me like it's a benefit to just about everybody to keep it in place.
That's my feeling
does
as
to
well.
me too. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you being here tonight. Good presentation, really good. I was talking with Kelly earlier today, and I thought, boy, I hope I get more clarity on this item, and I did. So let's see where we are.
On this item, I don't think we're asking for any action. The loan. Yeah, in the loan agreement will be item 14 on the council agenda.
That's where I saw it.
So, you know, it's presentation under the successor agency, and then we'll bring that back, and the city council would make recommendation on the loan.
We don't have to approve the resolution.
We have item number 5.
Adopt the
Did I
resolution.
miss something?
Yeah. I think we have to adopt the resolution.
I lost it.
Yeah, it's on page
And public
145.
comment.
I was looking. I don't-
Ratification.
Yeah, I missed that. Apologize. I am.
Okay.
So the this resolution is to put the loan in place. Should the successor agency also approve?
It on behalf of the successor agency, so, and then forwarding it to the oversight board, and ultimately they have to make the
That's
final
what I meant.
decision.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
That's, yeah, you're right.
We wear too many hats sometimes. Do you want to take public comment?
Okay. Is there any public comment on this presentation by Mr. Fraser? Public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item. And for some reason, I don't have that on my agenda. Thank you. Is to consider and approve resolution number SA 2014-15, approving ratification and amendment to loan agreements between the City of Crescent City and the former redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City.
And I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none. Any other discussion amongst the council? Okay, very good. Would you please poll the vote? Rob?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Board Member Murray?
Yes.
Board Member Shalong?
Yes.
Board Member Ania?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gastineau?
Yes.
And Chairman Hawley.
Yes, thank you. So, hey, we're out still. Okay, so we have no public hearing, no new business. So, anything that the members of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency would like to say? Okay, seeing nothing. We'll adjourn this meeting then, and we'll go back to our regular meeting of the City Council. Thank you, Mr. Gastineau. So this is where we'd ordinarily have a public hearing, but we do not have any public hearings scheduled tonight. So we'll move on to continuing business. The first item is to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with McClellan Excavation, Inc. to complete the base bid Deduct C of the Shoreline RV Park reconstruction project, contingent upon completion of all EDA funding requirements and approval by the city attorney.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Taylor to present
Okay.
this item.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. To start the real brief history, just to get me up to speed again, that, Shoreline RV Park was originally constructed in the early 1970s. Then again, Phase 2 was constructed in the mid-1980s, which got to current configuration of 192 spaces. As you know, the park's about 40 years old now. It's in pretty poor condition. Prior to 2006, the city had entered into several lease agreements over the years to have other park operators manage the park. Then in 2006, when that last 10-year lease had expired, the city went in and did an evaluation of the park and the conditions and determined that time it was probably in the best interest for the city to take back operation of the park. And so we did that on a temporary basis. It was been fairly successful. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years now since we've been running the park, but have been running it successfully. But we knew time was coming that we needed to put some significant improvements in the park. We've done several upgrades over the years, but they're more Band-Aids, and the real came to the core of the issue, which is the deteriorated infrastructure, buildings, just the general park, everything in the park. Basically, it's reached the end of its useful life. It needs to go. So in anticipation of that, the City Council decided to start putting funds aside that the RV Park generated into a special fund for the RV Park, which was a wise decision. Concurrently, staff worked on obtaining some other funding, which were successful in securing a $777,000 EDA grant, which was good news, and so that brings us here tonight. As you'll recall, I came to the council back in August 18th of this year. We put this project out to bid. One more thing I'll add, we have expended about $30,000 in RV Park funds to also come up with the plan for the park, the engineering, also to secure all our permitting and environmental work, so all of that's done. So we're ready to go on this project. So we first put this out to bid. Unfortunately, came back to, we had 3 bidders. 2 of the bids were just over budget, and the 3rd bidder had an expired contractor license at the time. So we were instructed to come back, put it back out to bid, and at that time we also kind of reconstructed the bid options. And so I'll go those real quick. That's important to note. So we have EDA required that we do these in deducts. So we had the base bid, which was to do the entire park project, which includes all the infrastructure, all the grading, putting in the roads, the sites, and also was for paving on the sites and the roads. We came up with deduct A, which was a base bid minus paving the RV sites, which is basically the paths where folks park when they come in. Deduct B, which was the base bid minus the paving the roads and the RV sites, and then we changed it. Originally, it eliminated putting in some of the sites, but we changed that to deduct C, which is base bid minus paving RV sites, roads, and then the valley gutters, which went down the center of the roads, which were part of the drainage system. Which was a wise decision, because what we wound up with, by doing it that way, we have at least a base project where the park can actually be reopened and fully functional. So we had 2 bidders the second time around. We had McClellan Excavation and Mercer Frazier. Again, one of the bids, as you can see, was just completely over budget, and the second bid, and why I mentioned the deducts, where we came down to the lowest bid was at the base bid deduct C project, which is for $967,000. And again, it's important to note that, by the way we redesigned the bidding, we actually have, at this base project, we actually have a park that can reopen at completion of this and be up and running again.
Eric, can you just summarize what the Deduct C does include?
Sure, I will, because it's actually pretty exciting, because it's easy to get into what we're not going to receive up front. You won't recognize a park, I guarantee you that. From what's there now, it's light years ahead of what will be, what's coming. So it's basically tearing out all the old infrastructure, which is all of the old park pedestals, the rotten, rusted out pedestals where folks come and plug in. Taking out all the water lines, taking out all the sewer lines, the electric lines, cable television lines, getting all new infrastructure. Regrading the entire site. We're bringing in all that fill material from the 2nd Street sewer projects. So all that material is being also imported over to the RV park to get us some better grading at the park. Regrading all the roads. I mean, so brand new, you've seen the plans, right? It's all new road system. We're going from 192 really undersized sites that were designed for the RVs of the 1970s. To 89 modern sites. They're all going to measure about 30 feet wide, range from about 80 to 90 feet long. We'll have upgraded electrical and the point where we'll have 50 amp service. Right now we only have 20 and 30 amp service, but most of your larger RVs, they require the 50 amp service, so folks will be able to come plug right in, they won't reduce down. New modern pedestals. We're using the same type that were used in the Harbor's reconstruction. So they're a marine grade pedestal, so they're not metal. They're made of a polymer plastic substance that they're very durable. They kind of have a nice little lighthouse design to them. Each one includes its own little lighting, so they'll all be lit up so when folks come in they can see what they're doing. It also includes the power, the water, the cable television are all located now within that one pedestal where now it's just spread around. Relocating all the sewer lines so it's easier to hook those in as well. We'll also have little paved pads around the sewer inlets, so if there's any spillage it goes back down, not just on the ground, which happens sometimes now. So yes, it's, like I said, redesigning all the roads, redesigning all the sites, all new infrastructure in the park. So you're getting a fully functioning, up and running park, and like I said, you won't recognize the park from what it is now.
So Eric, it doesn't pay for the paving?
So the only thing that's not included currently is the paving. So I'll go back, current funding, the RV Park Fund. We've expended about $30,000 to get the plans and like I said, all the permitting and engineering done, so that part's completed. So currently the fund has about $161,322 in it, and matching that with the $777,690 EDA grant, we have a total of $939,012. As you can see, the base bid came in at $967,000, which leaves us of a hard construction cost shortfall of about $28,000. So that brings us into the second kind of request that we're asking for. We're asking the City Council to authorize, we kind of termed it as a $100,000 line of credit, basically, to the general fund, which would be paid back by the RV Park Fund. One, first and foremost, is to cover that $28,000 hard cost that we're short. Two, to pay for any contingencies if they may arise. Hopefully they don't. And then three, to add some extra things, just to be sure we have the funding up front, is to one, to add the new signage out front on 101, to upgrade the wireless internet, and a few other incidentals that we'd like to get done at this time. So we don't anticipate using $100,000, but it's just a nice amount to have out there just in case, to give us some leeway. That's where we're at tonight. So we're asking that you accept McLennan's as the lowest bidder to proceed with the project. We're also asking, if the council is so inclined, you can direct staff to go back. We could look at maybe some outside funding options. If that's something we would like to look at to try to secure some of the paving, get some more of the project done. There's several options. The one nice thing is at least the park will be up and running and fully functioning with the money we have now. So that gives us a little leeway. The reason why we need to move forward tonight, though, is we do have some strict deadlines. One, there's a construction deadline for EDA, that's October 3rd. And two, we have some pretty strict deadlines with our coastal development permit. As you know, we're kind of heading into the rainy season, so there are pretty strict requirements on stormwater prevention plans and that type of thing. The biggest thing they're asking for is part of the project is we'll be creating a drainage ditch around the entire perimeter of the RV park. So they'd like to see that element put in first before October 31st. That way, if we do
Of this year?
Correct. So that way, if we do head into any heavy rains once we start construction, that will mitigate a lot of the problem as far as any type of erosion out into the harbor or Elk Creek.
If you were to look at outside funding for the paving, what ballpark?
Well, I mean, you look, the numbers are there. I mean, we're looking at about total, it's about a $500,000 shortfall. If you look at McLennan Excavation's bid for the total project, it was $1,450,000.
So it's 500,000.
Now, we could look at, you know, the nice thing is once, with the base, with the project we have now, we'll expend all of EDA's funding, so we'll be able to have our project completed and EDA out of the picture as far as that's concerned. So it leaves us other options. We're not bound by these deducts, so we could come up with a different phasing plan for paving maybe. You know, it leaves several options.
So the 500,000 is for the paving?
That would be the complete cost of paving. Or, you know, maybe another option is in the future, put it out as a separate projects. I don't know.
Okay.
So is it, I imagine it's easier to pave it at the same time as the rest of the project, but it can be done afterwards?
Certainly. I mean, okay. It can be added in afterwards. And it's just, you know, obviously it's always easier if the park's closed down and get everything done at once, but it's a pretty significant amount of money as well.
Yeah, it is.
So I don't think I saw this in the report, but, so would you like put gravel on there until you?
Correct. It'll be similar to what's there now. There'll be a, you know, the hard packed, you know, base rock that's there.
I was really hoping to get my sign before I was gone.
Could happen.
Are there any technical
I'm telling
questions?
you, you're missing people.
Well, and that's the idea of asking for the extra funding here. We will have it. We'll certainly have that signage in place prior to the next season for opening up again. So there's a lot of things that were put in place over the years, which were very smart maneuvering and smart moves, and so we're finally at the point to, you know, implement all of those.
I'm good.
Other questions?
Just one last one.
Yes.
As I recall, our revenue last year for that park, we made $50,000 about?
And over, I think
No,
an average,
clear.
I would say I think it's average $50,000. I mean, there were some transfers and different
Right,
things.
it's averaged about
Average
50,000.
about that, yeah. Maybe some years are higher, some years are lower. It just depends.
I imagine you're going to put a schedule together on the loan if the council approves it to come out of our reserve account. And I would just recommend that because I think that the park is going to do extremely well financially once all of these improvements are made, and I would recommend that if you can pay it back early instead of keeping to the payment schedule, that would be good.
Yeah, we'd like to pay it back as soon as possible. And also, one thing I didn't add, that we're proposing that a 3% interest rate, so to cover any loss may there be.
Maybe we can have Ms. Boyd address the 100,000 line of credit, you know, that we're asking for, and then also address the kind of future financing options that we've discussed.
Very good. Any other questions of Mr. Taylor while he's standing there? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Emily?
I think Eric really covered it very well on the need for the money, the additional funding. To be clear, we're asking for approval for a line of credit up to $100,000 that would only be used if needed or as needed. We're not going to just transfer $100,000 from the general fund over to the RV park. We're proposing, actually, we're proposing that the loan, whatever amounts are borrowed, be repaid at the rate of $50,000 per year, beginning in fiscal 16, which would be the first full year that the park would be open at its new, in its new form.
So you wouldn't make any payments on it until 2016?
That is what we are proposing. We could certainly have the option of making payments earlier if we needed to, or if we had the ability to. We're asking for the loan resolution itself to not begin payments until fiscal 16, because that is the first full year that the park would be open again in its new form. I wanted to point out that in the resolution, in the agenda packet, we had two resolutions 2014-37. One was an earlier draft of the resolution and got stuck in there by mistake. The resolution that we're asking you to act on is the second one, which, and you can distinguish them by the resolution we're asking you to act on has 6 whereases in it and also has all of the numbers in it. The first resolution that got stuck in the packet only had 4 whereases and did not contain all of the numbers. As far as future funding for the park, we look forward to developing a pro forma for the park and a business plan for the park that will enable us to go out to private lenders and possibly procure funding to complete the paving and the rest of the park improvements.
Thank you. Any questions of Emily?
Can I maybe clarify one thing? Fiscal year 16 is next budget year.
It's right around the corner.
We're in fiscal year 15, the way we were talking about budgets. So fiscal year 16 would be, our budget year that starts
Next July.
July, correct. Just kind of clarify that, so when we would start making those payments.
Good, that's better. Thank you for that clarity.
Well, when would the construction be done, Eric?
We're anticipating that the construction should be completed probably within 3 months after the start. Hopefully we'll start mid-October. And we have to start by October 31st.
Right.
So we're hoping by the first of the year that we'll be open again. And I think
You
it's
can
wise.
do all of that in the rainy weather?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the type of work, I mean, it should be able to be completed.
So you're banking on the spring, summer season before you start making the payments?
Yeah, because keep in mind, so the park's going to be closed for a few months, so there's some revenue that we're not going to be getting, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get the park back up and running again. So we just want to be careful. I mean, I'm always very cautious. I don't like to promise a lot of things and then not deliver, so I'd rather kind of come in a little lower.
And if you recall in this year's budget discussions, we planned on a 3-month closure, in the RV park budget that we didn't account for. Basically we said we're losing that revenue, over those 3 months while this park is closed. So we've already calculated that within our budget.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we can charge more for opening day.
That's something we'll be looking at.
Okay. Any public comment on this? Yes, Mr. Gitlin.
Roger Gitlin, city resident. I want to hear what I thought I heard, so I want to make sure. Current income is about $50,000 a year. Is that what you said, Councilman Aminian? And this is about a 3-month project, which would be done in the winter months when generally income would be down anyway. I guess my question to Mr. Taylor would be, or does the council consider perhaps upping the rates of the current rate, what you're now charging? Is that something in the future? And what would be the income projections once the park is up and running again in pristine order?
Thank you, sir.
Those are good points, and I think they're outlined in our next steps to evaluate a fee schedule.
Okay.
That was part of just clarification on the evaluation of financial options. We will be, going, back through and taking a look at the fee schedule and bring back recommendations, in the next 3-4 months before the park reopens.
Okay, thank you.
I think Justice Salisbury, Crescent City, I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse. We should kind of know what we're going to be asking for these spaces. We've gone from 192 spaces to 89 spaces. These are huge spaces. This has kind of taken a lot of local people out of the picture. I know I keep harping on, I would like some tent spaces over there for the major bicycling corridor that the bikers are like to have a little place to stay at. And I know I would like to have a little place to stay over there with the tents. Now that we're not going to be paving everything, certainly we should be able to squeeze in a little area for the tents. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring this back, and I think this is probably there's a number of actions being asked of us tonight. Can we do these all at one time, or should we take them one at a time?
I would recommend to take them individually, if you could, so we have clear direction on all of them.
Okay, very good.
I know that when the design was being presented to us, I know that at least Catherine and I were very much in favor of tent sites being added to the park. And I don't recall now if that made it into the design or not.
Didn't make it into the actual design per se, or we redid the whole park. But it was, I think it was, the direction was quite clear from the council that we would allow tent camping in the park still, so we don't want to exclude that. So if somebody'd like to, they can certainly, they're welcome to come in and rent a space and put up some tents.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
I think the whole council was in favor of tent camping.
Okay. So
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with McClellan Excavation Incorporated to complete the base bid deduct C of the Shoreline RV Park reconstruction project, contingent upon the completion of all the ADA funding requirements and approval by the city attorney.
I'll second that, and I would like to say, discussion-wise, that it'd be nice to have Mr. McLennan, after the project starts, to provide the council with an update. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So number one, authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement is before us. Any other discussion? Again, any discussion from the audience? Okay, very good. We'll bring this back here, and would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ania.
Yes.
Councilmember Shalom.
Yes.
Councilmember Murray.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau.
Yes.
And Mayor Hawley.
Yes. Okay, would you entertain number two?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to approve individual future contract change orders in the amount of $10,000 or less, with an aggregate future change order amount not to exceed $50,000 for the entire project.
And I'll second that. And can I clarify that 50,000 aggregate amount will not go over the amount of the $100,000 line of credit?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's see, you seconded it? Okay, is there any public comment on this before we vote? Okay, we'll bring it back then. Unless there's further discussion, would you please poll the vote on number two?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Shalom.
Yes.
Councilmember Ania.
Yes.
Councilmember Murray.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau.
Yes.
And Mayor Hawley.
Yes. Okay, number three?
I will move to approve Resolution 2014-37, authorizing a line of credit from the General Fund Reserve account to the Shoreline RV Fund in an amount not to exceed $100,000 for the purpose of financing the funding shortfall of the Shoreline RV construction project, and to be used on an as-needed basis.
Second.
Are there any, it's been moved and seconded, any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back to the council. Is that motion a correct motion in this matter?
Actually, we're going to approve the resolution in the next item. This one is just making the decision that we'd like to offer that line of credit, and then we'll technically make the line of credit available by the resolution in the next item. So I apologize for it being confusing, but the resolution is a separate item on the agenda. At this point, we're just gonna authorize.
It's not on my agenda.
Is it not? Is it a couple items down?
I just read the whole item.
Yeah.
It's item 13
Yeah.
on the agenda. The recommendations is what I'm looking at in the staff recommendations, items 1, 2, 3, and 4. is a little confusion.
We're not supposed to follow the what's on the business agenda that,
We are, we're still on number 12.
We're still
it's
on.
not on the agenda. I don't,
So
we
12 and-
can't authorize things from a staff report. It has to be authorized based on what's on the agenda.
So,
So we would have to.
We can skip, if you want to skip number 3, that's fine, but the resolution is brought up on, as number 13.
okay, that'll be brought up in the next.
So we
agenda
just
item.
need to direct staff to evaluate the financing options for future improvements to the RV park and report back to the council within 90 days. And then we'll move on to agenda item 13. Is that what you want us to do?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody in
So,
agreement?
so as a matter of order, we have a motion and a second, but it sounds like that should occur at on the next agenda item. Kelly, would you be willing to withdraw your motion?
I'm completely confused, so I'm not going to make a motion.
You resend it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll
Very
resend
good.
my second.
And I do not believe that we can make a decision, make a motion on something that's not on the agenda. But that would be up to the attorney.
I apologize, it's handled twice. So we have this direction in number 3, and the resolution is separately listed on the agenda. So let's just skip number 3 and go to number 4, and then we'll handle the line of credit in the resolution.
That's resolution 2437.
2014-37, number 13 on the agenda.
So can we just deal with item number 4 first and then move on to
Okay,
continuing business?
can we complete number 12? So the other item on those 4 items that we wanted actions taken, we've taken care of number 1, we've taken care of number 2. We're going to defer number 3 until the next agenda item, and number 4 is to direct staff to evaluate financing options.
Yes.
Right, but the staff report direction is not on the agenda.
Understood. It's item 13 on the agenda. That's why we're taking it out. Yes. Yes.
Let's
That's
see.
why we're not going to do.
Let's
just
see if this
ignore
works
number
out.
3.
What page is this?
Once.
178.
What'd you do? She touched my screen.
I'm sorry.
The resolution's on page 178.
Yeah. Okay, so did we have a motion then to direct staff to evaluate financing options? Has
So
that
moved.
occurred?
This is direction.
Just direction. Okay, so that direction is given. So we'll just move on then, I guess. Do you have what you need,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to number 13.
And I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2014-37, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Crescent City authorizing a line of credit from the General Fund Reserve to the Shoreline RV Park Fund in an amount not to exceed $100,000 for the purpose of financing the funding shortfall for the Shoreline RV Park reconstruction project.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau?
Yes.
And Mayor Hawley?
Yes. Thank you. Before I move on to new business, I'd like,
And I'd like to just follow up. I do not believe that what was moved for number 12 was handled correctly. And I'd just like to say that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look into that and correct it.
so I was about to ask my fellow council members if you need a break. We've been here 3 hours now. 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Is that okay? 5 minutes. We don't know how long the next couple of items are going to go, and we just need 5 minutes. The rest of you are able to go in and out, but we're not. So 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene.
No, I understand what she's
Meeting then? That was so good, I think we should do that after every item. Okay, so we have moved now. We'll move to new business. And again, thank you for that break. Consider for approval resolution number 2014-36, approving ratification and amendment to loan agreements between the City of Crescent City and the former redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City. Mr. Palazzo.
Yeah, Mayor Hawley, members of council, we've had a presentation previously on this agenda on this item. SAC recommends approval.
I had a quick question. Can you approve it with any, can you add any caveat that should redevelopment, the redevelopment state of affairs be re-implemented in the state of California? And I'm just talking out loud right now, but re-implemented in the state of California. Should there be a new governor? Should a new group of legislators reenact the redevelopment agencies? That if we added something like that to our loan, that we wouldn't have to go back and resurrect everything we could. Can you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do. Re-establishing redevelopment, I think, is going to be a long process, even if it was entertained at the state level. I just kind of in disbelief at this point if that'll ever happen. I guess legally, can you add something in the loan agreement that, you know, kind of restarts the clock if the state decides to bring back redevelopment and kind of change, you know, our loan terms?
I guess now that I'm just talking out loud, I guess you could probably just undo the loan.
I think we'd
and then
come back
start
to
paying it back with the incremental tax dollars.
I think at that point we would, you know, depends if it's 5 years or 10 years into it, you know, how much the growth rate has been. Was it 2% or was it 5%?
Right.
What's left on the loan, we would have to come back and at least, you know, provide the council oversight board with that information to re-adopt the loan.
I'm just very interested in how this is going to move forward. I only have 3 more meetings with you people, by the way.
You
people. And so I'm just, you know, thinking future. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to do it now. So thanks for letting me answer my own question.
Good. I'm glad you had a good conversation with yourself. Okay. Yeah, we will miss that.
I'm really good at it.
Come and talk to yourself anytime here. So, so this is before us. Let's see. Any questions of Mr. Palazzo on this? Any public comment on this? Thank you. Quiet public tonight. So we'll bring it back to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we adopt resolution 2014-36, approving ratification and amendment to loan agreements between the City of Crescent City and the former redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve a resolution number 2014-36. Any further discussion?
Quick question. Would this be null and void should the successor agency not be approved?
Why not approve this?
Oh, I see. And tomorrow's.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, with tomorrow's, you know, my understanding actually, we're the successor agency here to be the oversight board.
The oversight, I know, I keep.
Yeah, I get them mixed up
Yeah.
as well. And my understanding is, you know, the oversight board needs to approve or ratify, you know, this action. So if they don't, then I don't believe any of this is valid at that time.
So it's kind of the cart before the horse, but important.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's important that the successor agency, you know, it takes a motion or a stance on, you know, which direction, you know, you would like to move forward, you know, with the repayment of these loans and keeping the agency intact for the next, you know, 20, 30 years. So, you know, I think that's valuable information for the oversight board to understand, you know, so they can make that policy decision.
So this action actually says that we want to keep the successor agency intact?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay. Any other discussion here with the board? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do we have to take action to, a formal action about keeping the successor agency intact? We don't?
Okay, so I think it's the loan, and we're, moving forward with the successor agency, continuing, with these loan agreements and making those payments. I think it's the oversight board that, if they make a decision to dissolve, they can make that recommendation or that decision to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. As I remember, it was a while ago, but we had a motion and a second.
Yes.
So would you please poll the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau?
Yes.
And Mayor Hawley?
Yes. Okay, thank you. The next item is to request for approval of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Ordinances number 2014-01, an ordinance of the Board of Commissioners of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority repealing ordinance numbers 2008-01, 2008-02, 2008-03, and 2009-01, and ordinance number 2014-02, an ordinance of the Board of Commissioners of the Del Norte County Solid Waste Management Authority regarding collections, franchises, and mandatory disposition of waste. Report on the impact to the city of repeal of Del Norte Solid Waste Management Ordinances number, again, 2008-01, 802, 803, and 901. So this is before us, Mr. Palazzo.
Yeah, Mayor Hawley, council members, City Attorney Martha Rice will present this item.
Mayor Hawley and members of the City Council, these ordinances 2014-01 and 2014-02 of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority were brought to the City Council earlier this year, requested for approval. Currently, the joint powers agreement between this Del Norte Solid Waste, or between the County of Del Norte and the City of Crescent City, requires that all ordinances of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority be brought before both the City Council and the County of Del Norte to be approved before they can be finally adopted by the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority. So both these ordinances, 2014-01 and 2014-02, have been introduced. They are now coming before the city and the county for approval, and then they will, if approved by both boards, go back to the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority for adoption. The first time that this item was brought onto the agenda, the City Council requested a report on what impact repealing these ordinances would have on the city. So that is essentially what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight. Ordinance number 2014-01 repeals ordinance numbers 2008-01, 02-03, and 2009-01. 2008-01 is the Solid Waste and Recycling Responsibility Ordinance. 2008-02 is the Nuisance Abatement Ordinance. 2008-03 is the Administrative Citation Ordinance. And 2009-01 is the Enforcement Officer Ordinance. I'm going to quickly go over what each of those ordinances encompasses. The 2008-01 Solid Waste and Recycling Responsibility Ordinance is really the sort of meat of the ordinances. This ordinance is quite large, it's comprehensive, and it contains regulations pertaining to solid waste disposal, solid waste collection franchise, establishes mandatory responsibility for people who discard property, prohibits theft, theft of discards, theft of services, illegal dumping. It also establishes a basic level of service to be provided for tenants. It also has a materials management plan in there, and it also exempts certain businesses from the prohibition against hauling other people's waste. I'm going to go over what's the provisions that if this ordinance is repealed, these are the provisions that are contained in that ordinance that would no longer be covered because they're not covered under the city municipal code. There's the mandatory responsibility, which states each responsible party, which is defined as an owner or person who has the care and control of an inhabited residence, unoccupied parcel, or place of business within the city, has the affirmative responsibility to dispose of discards generated on their property legally, either by self-haul or through the franchise collector. Prohibited activities include the removal of materials from solid waste and recycling containers without the permission of the owner. So this can be people's containers that they put out for roadside pickup, or this could be dumpsters behind businesses. It also prohibits the unauthorized use of solid waste and recycling containers, and that's theft of services. That's when you dump your garbage or your recyclables in somebody else's container, and then it's picked up and they're basically paying for your waste disposal. Collection services, there's a provision in the ordinance that requires the responsible party to provide collection services for each tenant unit. There's also a provision that allows the authority to impose collection services on properties that have a continuing problem of trash accumulation. As far as container regulations, this ordinance requires each responsible party to provide a sufficient number of containers for solid waste generated on their property. Rental properties requires responsible parties to provide basic collection services, including the removal of solid waste once per week, and also requires the provision of recycling containers for tenants. And it removes certain businesses out of the prohibition against hauling waste for money. So these are contractors, landscapers, cleaning services, other businesses who the real main part of their business is something else, but hauling trash is sort of tangential to that. So there's nothing prohibiting them from hauling construction debris from the site to the transfer station. So those are the main pieces of the solid waste and recycling responsibility ordinance that are not covered by city municipal code, and if this ordinance is repealed, they will not be in effect anywhere. 2008-02 is a nuisance abatement ordinance. It's very similar to the city's ordinance. We're really not losing out on anything substantive there. And the administrative citation ordinance, which is 2008-03, is sort of an in-house thing for the authority. That allows the authority to issue administrative citations, just like the city's process. So by removing the ability to issue administrative citations, the authority will have to take all violations to Superior Court. And also 2009-01 is the enforcement officer ordinance. If that's removed, what that ordinance did was it allowed the authority to contract with a third party for enforcement services, which for a time they did with the county. So to really summarize what happens if you approve these ordinances is, one, there will be a loss of certain substantive provisions that I just went over. Those will no longer be solid waste regulations within the city. However, if the council were to decide that you liked certain of those regulations, we could certainly adopt them into the city's municipal code. The other thing that we lose is just the availability of another agency to fight blight and nuisances within the city. So it really comes down to a policy choice moving forward. Our recommendation as staff is that regardless of whether you choose to approve the repeal of these ordinances or not, either way, that you direct staff to look at the municipal code and bring back suggestions for revisions to make it consistent with Solid Waste Authority regulations, as well as just consistent with today's laws and language. The CCMC was written pre-1980, and so just even the terminology that it uses isn't up to date and doesn't really make a lot of sense with the state laws that are on the books. So we definitely recommend updating the municipal code, along with, and if you do choose to adopt the repeal or approve the repeal of these 4 ordinances, we definitely recommend that you then also approve Ordinance 2014-02, which I've referred to as the replacement ordinance. And that's an ordinance, it's also included in your packet, that puts back some of the really important provisions that were contained in Ordinance 2008-01. That includes prohibiting the disposal of certain hazardous materials, directing the disposition of waste, also known as flow control, which is important to maintaining the viability of the transfer station. And it also contains some franchise regulations. So we went through and pulled out what authority staff went through and pulled out what was felt to be the most important and vital sort of regulations we could not live without, and put them back into that what I call a replacement ordinance. However, like I said before, any violation of that ordinance will have to go to Superior Court. There's no ability to handle that in-house.
I have a couple, well, anyway, I have a few questions. So repealing all of those things that you listed seems to me, because I was very intimately involved in establishing the new franchise, as you know. Spent months and months on that process. So repealing all of those services in 2008-01, it seems to me that that would counteract the legalities set forth in the franchise agreement. And one being the one that stands out in my mind, and maybe you can tell me if it's in the replacement ordinance, but the direction of solid waste. Because right now, Recology Del Norte is the sole source of directing, picking up and hauling the solid waste garbage to the transfer station.
So it's still an exclusive franchise for Recology. That won't change.
Okay. But you would be repealing the inability of all of those businesses or non-businesses that would do self-hauling of other people's garbage, and the punishment of those that dump, which happens all the time.
Yes, so currently, if we look down at, let me look at my spreadsheet real quick. Yeah, so currently, if this ordinance 2008-01 is repealed, the exemption for certain self-haulers, being those businesses, will also be repealed. And technically, they would be in violation of the franchise.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. And then how does it impact the 20-year agreement that the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority has with, or maybe it's Hambro, that has with the White City landfill?
It won't affect, the ordinances wouldn't affect that relationship at all. There's a agreement and separate contract in place that governs that relationship.
Okay, thanks.
And it seems like repealing the 2008-01 ordinance would also diminish the recycling in the city limits. And that really concerns me because people, if they didn't have their own, if they did do their own self-hauling, they wouldn't necessarily be, they wouldn't have the collection service for the recycling from Recology.
Well, I think the place where that might affect you most, theoretically, would be that there's not going to be a requirement for landlords to provide recycling services to their tenants.
That's my point.
But as far as numbers, what landlords are practicing now versus how it's going to change, I don't know if there would be a big difference or not. Within this, we are in control of what we regulate within the city limits. We can't control what happens in the county, so the city could, in its municipal code, adopt regulations regarding recycling, regarding that relationship with landlords.
And if the city starts adopting all of these things into its outdated municipal code that doesn't meet state laws, it's going to cost us a lot of money to start enforcing those.
Well, the goal for updating the municipal code is to bring that section, which is now titled garbage, into current, into
literally speaking,
into, it would be completely redone. So
which costs money.
Well,
sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I'm good with that. I mean, I think that it's appropriate for us to update our municipal code and
no, I agree, but implementing it is going to cost money.
Right, and I don't think that we need to do it overnight. That's something that could be done in phases because there's a lot of other things we need to do. There's a lot of other things we need to do, so.
I think it's important, since Mr. Gastineau and I sit on the Solid Waste Board, it's important to get an idea of what some of the background is, what some of the interest is of some of the board, most of the board, I should say, right now. And the board, most of the board members feel that the Solid Waste Management Authority shouldn't be in the business of enforcement. They feel that's really the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors in the city. They say that as a result of having the Solid Waste Management Authority involved in it, sometimes people are cited by more than one agency because there's confusion about whose jurisdiction a particular issue lies in. And so there's not apparently good communication. I couldn't come up with any real instances, but that's the allegation. But that's the allegation. I'm just telling you what the thinking was. Allegedly, so the other thing is that the solid waste management, and it may start enforcing these at some point, but they haven't been enforced for a while now. So it's not really happening now in that entity. Finally, the other thing that I want to say is if we repeal these, I'd be in favor. I really think it's critical for us to put it in our own ordinances. But I think that the trickiest one, but the one that was of the most interest to the Solid Waste Task Force, had to do with tenants, had to do with landlord responsibilities relative to tenants. And I think that was part of the motivation for doing away with these ordinances, is to get rid of those particular ones, because there were certain landlords that were complaining about the requirement that certain services be provided to their tenants. So as we move forward to adopt our own ordinance, we're going to be dealing with those issues here. So
well, I can tell you that part of the thinking behind that was that there were a lot of multifamily complexes that had a lot of trash issues, and so that's where the whole landlord responsibility came into the discussion. But the discussion also was on the table of doing mandatory collection in the entire service area, and that was kind of a compromise to not go to mandatory collection for everybody.
And as we've seen with all the blight issues we have throughout the city, to me, it's a smart thing for property owners to provide trash pickup, and they can either build it into their rent for their whatever rent they charge, and or if they have a tenant that is willing to pay separately, they can negotiate that in their lease agreement, which I know is legal as part of the agreement that they can do. For example, I pay my own trash because I moved in before the new ordinance came into effect. So I have paid for my trash pickup ever since I lived there. So, and my landlord adjusts my rent accordingly. So if you have a responsible renter that is willing to pay, then the landlord doesn't charge as much rent. So you can do it that way too. But to me, a property owner, it behooves them to either pay for the trash pickup so that they don't end up with mounds of trash in the backyard, and it lowers their value of the property.
I mean, well, you know, we just had a meeting where we're talking about homes in the city where there's just trash piled inside the homes or in the backyards or all over everywhere, and, you know, huge health and safety code violations. And I think if you start taking those abilities to enforce them away, then it's just going to get worse.
Okay.
And to me, I know that the county's working in a health and all policies program just like the city is. And when we were at the League of California Cities annual conference, Rancho Cordova is a model city for health and all policies, including recycling and pedestrians having better walkways and making sure that, you know, the trash is, you know, lights at a minimum and that type of thing. And I think that we could be a model in the county and the city for having these types of ordinances in place so that people do have a healthy city and county to live in. I don't think it's really that much to ask. I really don't. I feel very strongly about recycling and having your trash picked up. That's the way I see it.
Thank you. Mr. Ania.
You know, I don't think it's a question of these ordinances. We can have these ordinances for the city. When we were talking earlier tonight about houses that there's trash in there, we don't have those city ordinances. We've been using the Del Norte solid waste because ours are out of date. They don't do that. They admit it. They don't do any of this stuff and haven't done it. If we repeal these and put our own city ordinances in place, we can enforce them in the city. The one that and it's not about recycling and stuff, we can have all that. We would have the stricter ordinances and we would enforce it because they're not enforcing it. The one about the administrative ordinance citation, I think is completely wrong. It needs to go to Superior Court. When somebody trashes a neighborhood or throws trash on the side of a road, that affects all of us. Why should they just go to an administrative hearing? Why not have a hearing in Superior Court before a real judge and be fined for what they're doing? I think that would discourage people from doing that if they have to go to Superior Court, not just an administrative hearing that you go to if you park in a red zone and things like that. That's heard before an attorney, not before a judge. So that one right there. But these are all about enforcement. We're not getting that from solid waste. So if we really want to do things with these, we ought to do them ourselves. We ought to put these on the books as city, and we need to enforce them. That's how I feel.
What's the financial impact on the city?
We are fighting, one of my major things, and I think it's a whole priority of the council, is blight. Blight is part of that. This is part of blight. This is cleaning up our city. We don't have to change much in these ordinances. Our attorney told us that. We can still require mandatory pickup for apartments and recycling. It's all the same thing, only we put it in our ordinance so we can use it if we need to. That enforcement officer ordinance, I don't think the enforcement officer for the solid waste has ever done anything in our city that I can recall. I could be wrong. I don't know, Erica, has he done anything in our city that you remember?
He doesn't want
I don't want to put you
You
on
don't
the
have
spot.
to do that, Eric.
You know, I don't think it's happened. I really don't think it's happened. I've never heard of it. But we can certainly do it if we have the ordinance. That's just my feeling. I think we need to go back to doing things ourselves.
The enforcement officer, I think he has done stuff in the city limits, especially with dead cars, as I call them.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Gastineau, you had something to say.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, the Solid Waste Management Board is leaning towards more of having the solid waste management become more of a utility. And I think that as a city, we should have higher standards, and we should put these, if they're going to take them off their books, we should put them on our books, and let the county deal with however they want to do it on their side. But I do believe that we should require landlords to have their tenants, you know, get trash. We should, anything that we can enforce.
Maybe we should just move to mandatory collection.
Yeah, that could be an option too.
And how's that going to affect Recology? When he has to start following ordinances for the county and ordinance for solid waste and ordinances for the city?
They would say that some people would say that's the problem. That's what's happening now. And they really haven't had, I don't think Recology's had a concern.
No, because he's always followed solid waste management ordinances. That are, because those are not, they're not strictly like a piece of the franchise, but when it comes to self-hauling and where the garbage goes and who can haul other people's garbage and where it ends up and how much what the rate is, all of that is governed by the franchise.
And you have a point there, because I mean, the JPA was put together to handle all of the county's trash, including the city and the county. And with these repeals that they're doing, they're sort of separating that back out again.
Yeah, I just don't think it's been thought out very well.
Okay. I know there'll be some public comment on this. Public comment, yes.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Henry. I'm a county resident, and I have sat through multiple hours of the Del Norte Solid Waste Authority meeting, as Mr. Hawley can acknowledge, since May 2013. I've sat through the whole thing of these ordinances, and I really wish you would not approve 2014-1 and 2 and not repeal the standing ordinances. As you've discussed, it's extremely complex. You may be initiating some unintended consequences. You're saying nobody's enforcing, nothing's happening. I don't think that's true. The authority tends to use more of an administrative kind of solution, where they talk to people as problems come up and try to resolve them. Their goal isn't to put people into court with lawyers and have them spend money. The idea is to educate people and clean up the county and the city that way. I think what is of most concern to me is that this does not acknowledge at all the direction that the state, the Cal Recycle, is taking, the whole effort towards 75% of recycling in the state by 2020. And part of that is AB 341, which initiated mandatory commercial collection. So right now, whether landlords like it or not, they are supposed to be providing recycling. I may have said collection, but it's mandatory commercial recycling, which is part of the solid waste treatment. So why are we undoing what we have in place when the state is really moving in a different direction? When I talked about that before, one of the commissioners at the authority said, well, there's no enforcement, no one's going to enforce it, so why should we do anything? Well, yeah, the state hasn't decided yet. This is very new, started in 2012. I've read some of the material. They are not going to stop at this. They're giving municipalities, counties, an opportunity to see what they can do, what they've used, and there's the review starting in 2015, 2016, and those communities that have not presented a good faith effort will have their entity, like ours would be the authority, would be held in non-compliance, and then their hearings and possible fines. So it's not like there's no enforcement. They're not going to go out, and we don't have to have a local ordinance. It's not required to enforce with landlords or other people in the community. But we are going to be the ones that are going to be accountable for the success of that mandatory commercial recycling program. The requirements there are that...
Mrs. Henry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Multi-unit housing, like apartments 5 or over, have to have recycling for their tenants, and businesses with 4 cubic yards or more a week have to provide recycling. So again, I'm sorry, it's so intricate, and there's so many things happening that I think, and I think your council gave you a very good report. I just think it's silly at this time to undo what was a unanimous decision of the Solid Waste Authority Board in October of 2008.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay. Yes, there is someone. Hi.
Tim Hoon, county resident. Hearing, there's a great discussion here, and I appreciate hearing from city council members that they're interested in keeping landlord mandated recycling and being concerned about enforcement. But hearing the list, City Attorney Rice's list of provisions that would no longer apply if these ordinances were repealed, I hope is alarming to the City Council. And I urge you not to approve these ordinances and send them back to the Solid Waste Management Authority to improve the ordinance. If there's a better thing, if the enforcement effort is not up to the city's liking, then with the 2 members on the board, you could work towards, improving that enforcement. And I think that's the appropriate body to make these improvements, not, it's kind of, if it wasn't so concerning, it would be comical. The issue at hand is to repeal this ordinance and throw it out, and then have nothing, or this bare bones ordinance in its place. And yes, you could, have a municipal ordinance to replace that, but that's months down the road. So I urge you not to repeal these things and send the issue back to the Solid Waste Management Authority, which is the board where these issues should be vetted and worked out, not this board, and then over to the County Board of Supervisors. I know it's hard, well, I don't see the little timer, but this Solid Waste Management Authority, I know you have your work cut out for you, but that's where these issues need to be worked out. Maybe in the coming months, there's going to be some change on that board. So maybe with new members, you could move forward with some ordinances that probably do need to be improved, like Councilmember Ania mentioned. Where is this enforcement that we're supposedly deemed in the ordinance? So anyway, that would be my request.
Thank you, sir. Other public comments?
Jesse Salisbury, Crescent City. Yeah, I too applaud Mr. and his. We need to definitely go forth with bringing these people to justice that are trashing up our town. I believe in mandatory garbage. I know that there are some people that were griping about it, that they maybe couldn't afford it. They didn't make that much trash. Well, that's great. Well, maybe we can start with the small can. And if you need, there are certain people that don't really need a lot of trash. But then we have other people that do, like apartment complexes. I know my daughter lives behind Ace Hardware, and And I've talked to the last three landlords, or the last three managers there, and told them that they were able to get recycling containers up to the size of their trash cans. Because as it is now, every week their dumpsters are overflowing. And then I told them about that they were able to get, certain two large items per can a year, and yet I go over there and, like for the last 6 months that I've been to her house, there's a widescreen TV and a couch, and they're not doing anything about these. These things should be dealt with by these mandatory, and if they don't do something about it, then we should have an avenue. I don't like the scorched earth of us just passing this to say, get rid of everything. I think we need to have something in place. And obviously, if what we have right now is out of date, now would be a good time to do it. We've had discussions about this, a lot of discussions about this, and we have a lot of good ideas, and I think that we could really put these to paper and make something our own that we could deal with, and let them play catch up later. They'll probably want to just adopt whatever we came up with anyway, right?
Thank you, Jeff. Other public comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board, to the council, I should say. And I know that you've given us, I appreciate your report a great deal, Martha. This is something that I know that the Solid Waste Management Authority was looking forward to this, and as well as the task force. That kind of an evaluation is something they've been looking for a while. So that's very helpful. And you gave us some options for us to take tonight. Of course, one of the options is to do nothing. One of the options is to pass these and proceed with our own ordinances. One would be to not pass these and proceed with our own ordinances, and see how they match up, and see if we can go forward. So I'm just suggesting we have lots of options, and there's no real time frame crunch on this, because I don't think that the county has moved at all on this. I think we're kind of at the forefront. So.
I sat on the Solid Waste Management Authority board for quite a number of years, and was very involved in what I felt was moving forward with the new franchise agreement. Worked very closely with Martha Rice in developing that, and I think this is just, it's been a political power play for a long time, and it's really gotten to be very tiring, and I think that it's done nothing but go backwards. I'm not even sure. I would not agree in losing all of the progress that we've made in cleaning up the community, that our franchise and that the ordinances that were developed for. I also agree that the city should update their code, and I would also like to see if this board does repeal these ordinances, that they also take into consideration the impact it will have on the city financially. And I think having our staff look at the financial impact would be a very important next step. That's my comment, and if there's no other comments, then I'll make a motion.
I have comments still.
Yes, Mr. Ania.
We need to update our muni code anyway. It needs to be updated. We have a responsibility to our citizens, and I take that highly, as fighting blight. If we don't have an agency that's doing that for us, then we need to do it ourselves.
But you're on that agency.
I'm on the agency now,
Right.
on the board, on the city council.
It's you two.
I'm not on that
Okay.
agency.
It's you two that's not doing anything.
I am not on that agency, but when I was on that agency, I made the motion to repeal these ordinances because I see nothing being done by solid waste to enforce this. This is a time when us as a city need to have our own codes, and they're out of date because we've been using solid waste codes. We need to update our own and enforce it ourselves. We need to enforce it ourselves. We have to hold people accountable. It's not being done right now, and it needs to be done. To me, it's as simple as that. It's not a political thing for me. We just need to take care of our own city. I mean, the county may decide that they want to leave it alone. We can still have our city ordinances. The county can have their ordinances, but it's nice to know that we are fighting blight, fighting trash, because right now, no one does that at Del Norte Solid Waste. They are not citing people, to my knowledge, and I've heard that they haven't. If someone can tell me different,
Well,
you know, I'd be happy to-
I think things have changed a lot in the last year at the Solid Waste Authority. They don't have any, there's less staff.
I agree with you, and they're not doing that job, and we need to pass our own Muni Code sections and see where it goes from there. This is the first time we've had a chance to talk about that as a city council. In 2008, we had 2 members of the city council on that board, but that's not a majority of the council. We may at that time might have wanted to have our own rules. We don't know. So I think it's a time that the city needs to do their own, to have their own rules, to have their own municipal code of rules.
Well,
That's just my
I think the overall goal of forming JPAs, which we are a part of several, is to work together with the county to solve a problem or create a solution for issues that we both deal with. And having the Solid Waste Authority in the past worked to do that. And I always felt like, there were some things I didn't always agree with, but, there are a lot of new rules and regulations coming down from the state that are very, the other thing is that the JPA also had the ability, we did a lot of pilot projects for the whole state, to where we got funding, and we were able to implement things like taking sharps back at local retailers instead of finding them in the landfill, and employees out at the landfill getting stuck with them. And so we were able to do small projects like that. And then also they were the recipient of hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to recycle oil and, all kinds of things. So I just, I've always said I'm not a liberal, but being responsible is important. And the more that we have seen the properties in our city and county become dump sites and homes that are just full of garbage, people aren't doing the right thing, and somebody has to. And you have to have rules in place to manage that. So I just have a really hard time repealing all of the abilities that are in place. And if you guys want to do it on a city council level and just take over all your garbage and everything from the city, you're going to have some kind of an issue with a franchise agreement. There's going to be some, and maybe, I know that, Tommy always says, he might even be able to lower the rates. Well, if he was going to lower the rates, I'd like to see his boss approve that. I actually called his boss and talked to him about that. But, the president of Recology said to me that if the franchise was not if we didn't hold up our end of the bargain, we knew where we would be. And that wouldn't be a very fun battle to be in. So I just, I caution you, because it's going to be up to you guys. And if you choose to go, to have the city handle all of it, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you money. And I can't tell you, or I would say that it's going to end up costing us more money than with the current situation that we have.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
One of our biggest industries right now is tourism, and people don't come just to the city limits. They come for the entire county. I sit on the Secure Rural Schools. It's known as RAC, where we allocate the timber industry mitigation funds. And I can tell you how many pictures and how many programs come to us to clean up the sourdough area, the forest, because of illegal dumping. We have a Dead Lake, we have all kinds of areas that we have illegal dumping happening, and we've had a lot of cleanup funds go, or money going to the cleanup for those areas and to clean up the trails and everything. We have tons of it that have gotten, tons of money that have gone to that, and I really feel that if we aren't part of the JPA with the ordinances in place, that we will see that happening more and more, and I feel like we should keep those things in place. I like what Mr. Hoon said about going back to the Solid Waste Authority, JPA, and looking at improving the ordinances and strengthening those for the enforcement for that, and keeping those in place until we can improve on them and not getting rid of the ordinances we have. And listening to what Ms. Henry said about what the state is doing with their recycling and cleanup programs, because we will have a lot of consequences in that arena, and I'm taking heart to what Councilmember Shalong said about our franchise possibly being jeopardized if we get rid of our ordinances as well, and I appreciate what Mr. Salisbury said as well.
Well, I don't think the franchise is not going to be jeopardized by repealing the ordinances, but if you start redirecting trash and
that's what I meant. Yeah.
And having people be in violation of the franchise because of the repealed ordinances, those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. But I mean, at the minimum, the city should do a financial impact on us taking over whatever it is you guys think you're taking over before you repeal what you have in place to enforce the rules that are out there right now.
Okay, thank you. This has been a good civil discussion. I'm sorry. The comments are, we have to, I don't think. I too am concerned about approving this. As those of you who were at the meetings know, that I initially voted against the repeal of any of these ordinances. One of the reasons I finally voted for moving for was to bring it here for this very discussion that we're having. The fiscal impact is something that is a good point. And I am really, at this point, don't think that we're ready, I don't think, to approve these actions. But I would like to move forward with looking at our own ordinances, and if those are sufficient, in time, then maybe we can change our minds. So, but they have to be done anyway. So that's kind of where I am. This is something we've been dealing with for a long time, and I was hoping to get some closure, but this has been a very good discussion. So it's before us. We can do nothing, or we can ask staff to go after the ordinance, our own ordinances that parallel it.
I thought we were discussing directing staff to update our municipal code.
That's one option.
To get that in place, and I would like to see it go back to the Solid Waste Authority Board and suggest some improvements.
I highly doubt that's going to actually happen.
I don't know that given the way the board is comprised right now. I don't think that'll make a big difference. We can make a request, but this in fairness to the board, this is something that was also brought to us from the task force, who that was their top priority, is to get this done. So the board, it was, and the board listened to it and took it to heart. So is there any action here, or should we just move on to the agenda?
Well, at a minimum, I would direct staff to bring back recommendations for updating and revising our municipal code, chapter 804.
Okay, that's been moved?
It's just a direction, really.
A direction? Are we all in agreement with that direction?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion that we repeal that the report on the impact of the city that we repeal Del Norte Solid Waste Authority Management, that we appeal ordinances 2008-0.
You have to approve this, which repeals all of that.
Okay, that's what okay, thank you. That we approve Del Norte Solid Waste Authority's ordinance 2014-01 and ordinance ordinance 2014-02.
Okay, there's been a motion on the floor to approve the solid waste ordinances 2014-01 and 2014-02.
And that repeals all of those earlier ordinances, correct?
Repeals it, and then it enacts 2014-02, which is a new ordinance. Any second on that? Okay, seeing no second, I'd entertain another motion, or we can move on. Okay, very good. Thank you. We will report back to the Solid Waste Management Authority that approval was not given by the city, and then we'll go from there. But we look forward to seeing some...
For round 14.
For round, yeah. So, thank you all. This has been a long haul, and I appreciate your thoughts. So, we're just about done here, but we have something very interesting, folks. You don't want to go now. We're going to discuss and consider the entry of the City of Crescent City into the WETIP crime reporting program and direct city manager to sign a contract and take action as appropriate and necessary. WETIP.
And Ms. Scott will present this item.
Hi, Mayor Hawley, members of the council. Bear with me for 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Her first presentation.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, so I'm here to discuss with you the WETIP program. We had some risk management folks from GSRMA in early August. It was right about the time that Kidtown got hit up with graffiti. There was some damage done to some of the public restrooms, and in discussion with them, they brought up this WETIP program. So we began to take a look at it, and basically what WETIP is, it's an informational program to get information out to the public and to receive information back from the public. It utilizes a tip line, real easy to remember. I think it's 1-800-87-CRIME. So basically it's something that the public we can get out in front of them, and we can report crimes to WETIP that we would like follow-up on. They will give us crime-specific flyers that we can put up, using Kidtown as an example. You know, we could get out flyers specific to that incident. They also give us flyers that are just general in nature to get the WETIP program out in the public eye, so that people know that they have this avenue to give us information. Part of the WETIP program is that they will provide up to $1,000 reward per tip that results in a conviction. So for some people, they state in here that about 1/3 of the people that call in ask to receive this reward, about 2/3 do not. But it is an extra incentive for some of those folks that may not come forward without having that rewards program. What makes this different than the line that we currently have in place, we do have kind of a tip line in place right now, but it's not well promoted. You have to go onto the website to find this number. It's not in your face, and I don't think that it's very well conveyed that there's any kind of reward associated. We did pass a resolution in the past to make monies available for a reward through our current tip line, but that has not been budgeted for years. So WETIP is a registered 501c3 nonprofit. They get their money through their memberships, through grants, through fundraisers. So they provide this $1,000 reward, up to $1,000 reward. It does not come out of our pocket. The membership to become part of their program is $1,250 a year, but that is a benefit that GSRMA will pay for us. So the cost to us is simply staff time in promoting this and making the information available to WeTip and making staff members available to receive the information from WeTip.
For the public's benefit, can you tell us GRSMA, which is our insurance company?
That's
for
our
the city?
insurance company for the city, yes, sorry.
So do our insurance rates go up for covering that?
I don't believe so.
No, there is some information in the packet. GSRMA sees this as a benefit to them as well in prevention. They pay out a lot of money in taking care of claims for theft, vandalism, graffiti, and so to them, my impression from them was that this is money well spent to work on the prevention end. So as you know, we do have a lot of theft, vandalism, graffiti, drug use in Crescent City. WeTip specializes in those, also in arson, fraud, bullying, violent crimes, hit and run incidents. Here's some not too friendly examples of, these are pictures from Crescent City. Some of the things that are experienced here. So as you can imagine, the people that might have access to the information of who committed these types of crimes may, that carrot may be enough to get them to call in and let us know.
So how would you let people know about this? Like, are you going to put pictures up every month about all the crimes so people could call in?
Well, this will be put into the hands of who our new chief would be, kind of leading this program. But WeTip uses, they use posters, brochures, bumper stickers. They have radio ad, which they will provide to us. It is extra cost for us to air those radio ads. But, you know, we can make use of our kiosks, our website, our Facebook to kind of get this information out in the public. This is something that we'll get out of it what we put into it. So
I think putting pictures of like the tagging and, you know, vandalism and things like that on our Facebook is a great idea.
Yeah, I think, and this provides, I mean, it's a safe means for people who call in to give these tips to receive that money. It's a very confidential process that they go through in receiving the tips so that people aren't scared to call in and give us that information. I think that calling a national hotline that's kind of separate from the city and separate from this area may give people some more confidence than calling straight into the police department. They may feel like they lose some of that anonymity. I can't say that word right now. It's late.
Anonymity.
Yes. So,
Well,
you can't either.
Anonymity.
I'll think of that.
But they do, their staff will work with our staff to help teach us the best ways that we can use to promote the program. Another benefit of using their hotline versus their hotline is their staff is available 24/7, 365. They are trained in investigative techniques for doing these types of phone calls to get quality and quantity of information out of the people that are calling in. They also, I just found this out today, have multilingual people there. So if we have somebody that's calling in with a different language, they have the resources to be able to receive those tips from those people. So, like I said, specific incidents, we can upload the information to their website or we can call it in, such as the Kidtown incident. We will designate a liaison who they will contact when they receive information. The information, a copy of that is also faxed to the city. On larger incidents, they will contact the media outlets to help us get the information out, so it helps take some of the pressure off of city staff resources and puts it with this great nonprofit. It's something that will build over time. As long as we are working with this program, it will give back to us with time. We have to build that relationship with the community. If they see that this is working and working the way that it's supposed to work, that trust builds. And so I did have some reports in there from some other communities where they have said that over time this really tends to grow. So they've been around since 1972. As you can see there, there's a list of, there's a lot of success that this program has had in the past. This is kind of the grandfather program of these tip lines. So I think that it's a great program at no cost to us.
That's great.
Sounds good.
Questions?
Yep.
Any questions? I do have one question.
Sure.
The one, and I'm real excited about this, but is it going to be a problem because our city has the boundaries that it has, and we start advertising the We Tip line? I would think that some of those crimes will be occurring in the county. And
that's a really good point.
They're going to have a hard time distinguishing. Even I have to think about the word.
We'll pass this information on to the county, and maybe they can become part
Yeah,
of
if
the
they
program.
could be part of it, that would be great.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because most people have no clue where the city limits are.
Right.
And how does that work if they call in and say, oh, someone just vandalized, and they go, oh, that's in the county, sorry, we can't help you.
Yeah, we can't
I
pay
mean,
you.
how does,
I
How
think
does that work?
that would be wrong of us to just say we can't help you. I mean, we could certainly pass that information on to the county. And this hotline is a national hotline, so it also, when people hear about something, this hotline is known in other communities. So if people hear about information that happens here in other communities, it'll also get back to us. So it's larger than us. And I see what you're saying, that it can be messy when something happens outside of us.
They'll take the information and they'll give it to the city police, because we had that where I was. And if it's not ours, it's given to the right jurisdiction. The police will pass it on. But usually in a community like ours, it's the same people committing crimes in the county and in the city,
Right.
because we're so isolated and small. So that's going to help us, the information.
what about the current tip line? What will happen to that?
I guess that would be up to our incoming chief.
Yeah, we haven't
Because
discussed
I know it's
that.
like,
That's a good-
I think
that's
it's
a good
painted on
question.
our cars.
And we can take,
We have that current one, and we have a phone in the station. We receive numbers on. I think the idea, this is another tool in our
Gotta train him.
yeah, Chief, could you come
Chief.
to the, can you come to the mic?
Chief?
Chief, can you come down to the mic?
Thank you. We want you on TV.
You also have to follow the rules.
And Chief Berry reviewed this and is familiar with the We Tip program and has said it's a great program.
Yes, we do have the tip line now, and we do receive calls on it. And this We Tip is just another tool in our toolbox, and it's a great program that's been accepted, and people recognize it. It has that recognizable past and history that has a good running deal. Working about jurisdictions, we don't care where the jurisdictions are. If there's a crime to be solved, we'll let the agency know where it's at and work with them wherever we get the information from. So jurisdiction is not an issue with the county, outside our county, wherever. If we get information, we will definitely share it with the appropriate agency.
Good. Now, my only thought was the person calling in who thinks they're going to get a reward, and it's the city's reward program.
I think We Tip is going to look at the reward regardless of where the problem is solved.
Okay, good. That's what I like to hear.
From everything I've seen with it in the past. Very good program.
Thank you, sir.
Our existing tip line, take a look at that and see if we can, keep it, utilize it somehow.
All right. So, any public comment on We Tip? Any We Tip comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back here. I believe there's an action necessary for this.
We just ask you to direct the city manager to sign the contract and take action as necessary and appropriate.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved.
Thanks, Kimmy, that was a good report.
That was a good report. Thank you.
Good
Kim.
job.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Since we're making that direction, would you please poll the vote?
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ania?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gastineau?
Yes.
And Mayor Hawley?
Yes. Okay, we're almost finished here. Legislative matters. Any legislative matters that we need to talk about? Okay, seeing none.
There's a new council member and mayor's forum that has come back to life for next year. It'll be held in Monterey in June. They took it away for the last year, I think, and it used to be in January, but anyway, it's going to be in June of next year in Monterey.
All right, book me on that.
And I wanted to mention that the Redwood Empire Division of the League of California Cities resolution regarding illegal marijuana grows was passed almost unanimously at the annual conference earlier this month, so that was pretty huge.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. City manager report, city council directives, anything?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Very good. Thank you for that. Let's start, let's go ahead and
get
come
my
to...
list out. It's take about 20 minutes for you.
Yeah, would you? We'll meet it in.
Did you want to do your employee evaluation now?
Yeah. Let me write that
It wouldn't go
down.
very well right now.
Mr. Nia, anything that you'd like to report out?
Just quickly, I attended the rocking at Rowdy Creek on the orders of Councilmember Shalong and security.
Thank you very much.
And there were no security incidents. The Delmar Child Care Council put that on. Went to the local transportation commission meeting, and I went to our Promote Our Pool, and we're planning a fundraising event for later on this year. That's it.
Okay. Kelly?
I've been having weekly meetings with the Chamber of Commerce in the city and all those parties involved for the Sea Cruise that's coming up. So make sure that you get out and buy your tickets to the dance, and it's the weekend of October 10th. It's going to be a great time. We're already ahead in the number of cars that have registered, and also ahead in the number of vendors that have registered. I think everything is going smoothly. We're going to have a updated complete operations plan in the city's hands by next week, and should be a good event. I also was at Rockin' at Rowdy. I actually chaired the event. I was the event coordinator, and it was a really great event for the Child Care Council. I think about 400 plus people attended for the first time, so that was a really good benefit for our community. I'm also going to be coordinating an event, and I'm going to bring it up right now because it's such a great cause. We have 3 little girls between the ages of 6 months and 7 years old with cancer here in Crescent City. And so we are going to have a benefit to help their families on November 1st. And it's called Country Against Cancer. And it's going to be kind of a country music concert and raffle and auction held out at Elk Valley Casino. And they're partnering with that. So if you put November 1st on your calendars, that would be appreciated. It's always nice to be able to do a benefit that actually helps little ones here at home. I wanted to thank Mr. Slagle for being here tonight. I take seriously the person that's going to be sitting up here replacing me, so having you here at these meetings and interested in what's actually happening is important. I also wanted to say that I'm sitting on the fundraising committee for the Redwood Empire California League of Cities, and we had actually come up with a date for our fundraiser to be held in Fortuna, but they didn't get any responses back at all from any council members. So they sent out a survey, and I just wanted to ask you all if you took the survey. I hadn't heard any response from any of you, so any feedback for us at all?
No, I responded, I said I could attend any of the dates, so.
On the survey?
Yeah.
Okay. No.
I've been out of it for a little while.
I know.
You better.
They weren't. Okay. So it looks like maybe it's not going to happen. I'm not sure. So.
Well, I think it's still happening, but.
Well, as of this last week, there were no RSVPs. So that's why they sent out the survey. Yeah. So hopefully I'll hear back from Sarah this week, and I'll let Gene know, and he can maybe send out an email to all of you. Gene, I wanted to thank you. Jean put together and the staff put together this book for new council candidates, and this is excellent idea. So I hope that everybody takes advantage of that information. Rick and I met with, as the audit committee today, as we reported earlier, with Mr. Abadawi. And if you have any questions of us, feel free. Oh, you can't. I was going to say feel free to call us. Sorry, you can't do that. Feel free to reach out to Mr. Abadawi because he's very easy to talk to. I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. Catherine.
Let's see, I attended the Del Norte Solid Waste Authority workshop, and that was very well done. I appreciated attending that. The local transportation had, well, it wasn't the commission, but they had a workshop on last chance grade and climate change. And then August 23rd, Congressman Huffman was here, and he primarily discussed the issue of the Postal Service considering closing down rural post offices, which I think would negatively impact us here in a rural county, and they'd send our mail to Medford instead of Eureka, and it would be, so if you have a concern about that, you can write to your federally elected officials and let them know why you think that's not a good idea. And then I went to the LRT's play, political play, surprising for me, on November, and it was really well done. So I really appreciated that. And then we celebrated Labor Day, and then off to Los Angeles for the League of California Cities annual conference, where I participated in the Coastal Cities meeting, and then the Environmental Policy Committee and the Regular Policy Committee on the illegal marijuana grow, which I mentioned that we were very successful in getting the Redwood Empire Division's resolution on the illegal marijuana grow, which we were the only one to have a resolution. And it's kind of nice to have our little division be influencing state policy. So I was very proud of us. And then the Redwood Empire Division, we had our dinner, and I was outgoing president for the division, and they gave me a very nice clock with a little plaque inside, and so it was quite an honor to be the division president, and quite a privilege. So it was nice to have that, and we inducted the new officers for next year. And then I participated in the airport JPA's director interviews, and we've offered one of the candidates the position. So that announcement will be coming out who that person is fairly soon. And then I also attended with our city manager the Coastal Commission dinner last week, and then the regular local transportation commission meeting. And then I was called last Friday for the League of California Cities for an interview, and that interview is on their website. So that was kind of fun. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Catherine. Hardly anything.
Mr. Gastineau.
I know. Every time I follow Catherine, I feel so inadequate.
Yeah.
All I've done in the past month, pretty much, as a solid waste management special meeting, and then also the one on the 10th. And I'm surprised Mr. Ania didn't talk about our dog and pony show at the Tea Party Forum, where we. Thank you. You left me something where we were promoting, our support for Measure C coming up on the ballot to have an appointed city clerk, and so we just urge everybody out there to get out and vote, and so that we can get. Not that Robin's not professional. In no way am I saying that, but to be able to bring in an employee that has the qualifications, instead of just having a person who. To be an elected city clerk only has to be 18 years or older and no felonies. And so That is all they have to have. So.
It's good to
we would
know
like
you're a
to-
good girl.
Yeah.
Well, that's unreasonable.
So, Robin, you don't have any felonies, right? No. Okay. No convictions. No convictions. So that was basically it, and that was a good informational thing for me and Richard to do on the request from our mayor, who decided that he was going to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And-
Story of my
and-
life.
And Ms. Patch was going to be there, and she was out of town, and
Okay.
So that's it.
I would just like to say I wanted to thank both of you for doing that. I was in El
I did too.
Paso greeting my wonderful soldier home from Afghanistan, so.
Very good.
Thank you.
Kelly, you had something else.
Quick question that I forgot to bring up for our city manager. The Chamber Sea Cruise Committee is interested in knowing the state of affairs of the Surf Hotel, if that construction and all the stuff out in the roadway is going to be in place still for Sea Cruise weekend.
we will find out and report out.
That would be great.
Report back.
Yeah, I just need an update. So we can take that into consideration if we need to. Thank you.
Okay. I too attended the solid waste management meetings, and the League of City Conference was really the big thing for me. And I'm not going to go into any detail about these workshops, but I just wanted you to get an idea of the advantages of going to these conferences. I went to these workshops: a code enforcement, receiverships, panhandling and prayer, First Amendment free speech right for public officials, which was interesting. All about municipal revenues, social media and the public workplace, which is very interesting. Don't tweet your way to termination is what it was called. And so it was really interesting, actually, that people are getting in some real trouble tweeting things from their desk, and it's a problem. Documenting the silent majority, that's one that we attended. That was really interesting, because we hear a lot of, you guys have been great, but we hear some dissension here, and usually it's some people that are upset with what we're doing, but we don't hear that others people really do agree with some of the decision making we have done, and so it's a way to kind of quantify the way people are really feeling out there. So that was good, and I guess most importantly, Dr. Barber was our keynote speaker, and he wrote a book called If Mayors Ruled the World.
Fiction, of course.
It's not a fiction. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. You have to realize that we only had one meeting this month, so if you divide the time by 2, we aren't far off. So again, thank you all for staying to the bitter end, and we will see you next month. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thanks a lot.